Get started. Ralph's going to say the prayer, then we'll follow by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us.
Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to come together to do the business of our county. We call on you because we recognize you are a sovereign God, and we just trust that you will be with us and guide us in each of our decisions we make. We are just men called to serve, and we know that we need that guidance and we need that input from your hand and also from our community. We ask you to just bless us in all things we do. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, on the approval agenda, I'd like to ask that we move item 18, on which is the accepting right-of-way for Summerwood.
Let's do it.
After awards and presentations, we got a bunch of people here for that. Hopefully they won't need to speak on it because we'll all be in agreement, but it's all right with you all if we move that up?
Yeah.
I fully agree.
After awards and presentations.
Need a motion? I'll make that motion.
Was there any other modifications?
I second the motion.
Hold on. See, under awards and presentations, I'd like to add a presentation by the CRTPA, Harry Reed.
Okay. You all like Harry? Okay.
And from the consent agenda, pulling items 12, 13, 15, and 16.
Okay.
To
Do you want to handle those items, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
To the discussion items, I'll be adding.
We don't need to add to that, however. We'll just talk about it.
Okay, good.
Okay. Anything else?
I'll second Ralph's motion.
Ralph?
As modified.
Okay. As modified. All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. David? Public hearing number 1. We got a long agenda tonight, so let's try to get to it as efficiently as possible.
Yes, this agenda item requests the board conduct a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending Chapter 23 of the Wakulla County Code of Ordinances. The Wakulla County Sheriff's Department has requested specific enforcement authority to enforce payment of fees for use of the county parks and recreational facilities. Our recommendation is to approve to conduct a public hearing and adopt a proposed ordinance amending Chapter 23 of the Wakulla County Code of Ordinances imposing fees for use of county parks and recreation facilities.
Can I get a motion on this item?
I just want to clarify one thing, because this was something I forgot to ask earlier. On these fees, does that include, like, if somebody wanted to go to Meadow Lake Park each night, do they have to pay to go each night, or?
No, it has nothing to do with
Okay,
that.
all right, got it.
I asked that. This will not change any current fees.
Okay, got it.
Got
A
it.
second?
I second the motion.
Okay, any more discussion? Any cards?
Yeah.
Call for the motion?
Wait,
I'm sorry,
look,
go ahead.
look. So, could Mr. Edwards, could you just do a quick summary of what this is actually going to do as far as what we did not have in place and what this will provide us as far as enforcement?
Currently, the ordinance as passed will impose the fees for our boat ramp fees. There was never an enforcement arm to that. Therefore, this puts the enforcement arm to it to where we can assess fines or penalties, much like a parking ticket, to where if someone doesn't pay their boat access fees, that they will be ticketed either by the our code enforcement officers and or the sheriff's department.
Just like the refuge does.
Just like the refuge in national
Parks,
parks. Yeah.
Wakulla Springs. Any more? All for the motion? Aye.
Aye.
David?
Yes, this agenda item requests board approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting ordinance amending Chapter 7 of the Wakulla County Code of Ordinances related to parking and mooring of vehicle and vessels on county boat parking areas, boat ramps, docks, and piers. Wakulla County Sheriff's Office recommended that additional regulations relating to parking and mooring of vehicles and vessels on county boats and parking area, boat ramps, docks, and piers be established to provide for effective enforcement of these areas.
Anybody?
I make a motion to approve.
All right.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Val.
I'm okay with it, with the exception of 7.002 that pertains to parking after sundown. I have a problem with that. I'd like to strike that section out completely. You know, something as simple as if I go to the boat ramp and two of my friends are going to go with me and they're going to come by separate vehicle, now they could potentially have their car towed or ticketed. I fully agree with you. And they're in the boat with me. So if we could delete 7.002, I'm okay with it as is.
I just want to add to that, that also my concern was if someone wanted to go out and spend an evening on one of those islands and camp, whatever, for a night or two. So that 24-hour thing was a problem.
Yes.
Well, that pretty much is the whole purpose of this public hearing, 7.002, isn't it?
Well,
No, 7.00, the second one dealing with
More.
tying onto docks.
Okay.
Keep in mind,
I mean,
though,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
hold on, though. If you delete 7.002, the restriction that is already in your code for Masha Sands will still be in there. Because there's already a restriction that you can't be in Masha Sands parking lot past sundown.
So I'd like to see us bring that back and strike that
Sounds
as
like a good
well.
agenda item for you, Ralph.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out, because then we'll revert back to the code as it exists, so if you want us
Yes.
to bring that back.
I'll be glad to bring it back.
I didn't even think about it. It's a good point.
There's some other, more discussion on this.
Okay.
This is an economic driver of our county. You know, we're trying to make it easy for people to get down here, not just our county folks, but other people to get down here and use our boat ramps. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't discourage them from being overburdensome, and also continue to look for more opportunities to give more access. I know, Chairman Merritt, you are a big component of that.
Absolutely.
What happens to a vessel that is going to be towed away? How does that get handled? I understand the car, but I'm not sure about the towing of the
A vessel, we would either tow it to an existing dock somewhere that we are leasing a space and impound the boat basically, and or take it out of the water and impound it just like you would we were towing a vehicle off of the right of way. Be the same difference.
We being who?
The county.
But we don't have a boat.
Or a license, someone that we license. It's like if we have a car on the right of way, we call a wrecker service and they come, naturally we wouldn't call a wrecker service to get the boat, but they're boat haulers and we get those boat haulers to get them out.
So there are companies that would come down with a trailer or whatever, and
Yes.
Yeah, the state statute is already set up. It applies not only to towing of vehicles, but specifically to towing of vessels. There's a very established process. There's safeguards in there for the vehicle or vessel owner, and most licensed towing companies in the state are going to be very familiar with this process.
Hey, more discussion? All for motion? Aye.
Hold on a second.
He need to modify his first,
Yeah,
or I need to withdraw my second.
I make the motion based on the conversation we just
let's
had.
go ahead and rescind that vote you guys just took, and then you wanted to do it as amended to
Oh, you'd
remove
already amended the motion.
7.002.
Whose motion was it?
It was my motion, I think.
Do we need to vote to rescind the
Yes,
vote?
please.
Okay.
All in favor of rescinding? Aye.
Yeah, aye.
Let's start again.
Now, I make a motion with the corrections that we just put in.
To delete section 7.002.
Correct.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now it passes.
You got that, Miss Evelyn? I don't know how she gets it, but you got it.
All right, tab 3, tobacco product restrictions.
Okay. Sorry. technical difficulties. Pursuant to your direction at your previous board workshop on the subject of tobacco, this ordinance brings back the regulations as requested to restrict the placement of tobacco products in Wakulla County stores. What this does is basically it reinforces the no tobacco products under 18. It also provides that you will have to have a merchant-assisted transaction for all tobacco purchases, unless you're in a specialty tobacco place. And then finally, it requires that all tobacco products be placed out of the reach of the public.
This is dealing strictly with a product placement, and it doesn't restrict their ability to sell it.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, is there a motion on this?
I make a motion that we conduct a public hearing and adopt a proposed ordinance relating to the unauthorized sale of tobacco products and restricting the placement of tobacco products.
Second.
Motion second, Ebony Davis to speak on it.
Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Davis. I am a Wakulla Middle School student and the secretary of Wakulla Middle School Students Working Against Tobacco Club. I'm here to represent the students in favor of placing candy-flavored tobacco products behind the counters out of the sight of children under 18 years of age. Thank you for allowing me to voice the youth of Wakulla County's SWAT opinion.
Good job. Thank you. All right, any more discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Ralph.
Our workshop went very well, and it seemed like this was kind of a no-brainer that everyone was in agreement. But since then, I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've had a lot of time to think about this. If we read the ordinance, it says the intent is to prevent the sale or delivery of tobacco products to persons under 18. Well, it's already illegal. There's no circumstance where it is legal for a person under 18 to buy tobacco. So in my thoughts, we are putting a regulation to make something illegal that's already illegal, and I've heard no accusations whatsoever of any stores that are breaking this law. And so, ultimately what we're doing is we're regulating the stores when there hasn't been any accusations that they're doing anything wrong. We also heard that children are more likely to steal the tobacco if it's left in the open. And that may or may not be true, but if I run a store and my product is walking out the door not being paid for, then I'm going to do something about that. I don't have to have the government tell me to protect my product. And so I think that's another unnecessary thing for us to do with this ordinance. There are many stores. I went to, I think, almost every store that sells tobacco in this county, looking at it and see who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong. And there's a lot of them that are doing it exactly in accordance with this ordinance. They're already getting it right. They're self-policing, and they're doing that. I would like to encourage people, if there's a store that's doing it consistent with your moral values, then tell that store manager, I'm going to shop in your store because you're doing that. And if there's someone that's not, tell that manager, I'm not coming in here again because you're putting this product in there, and let the market decide. And then, trust me, those store owners will police themselves without us having to regulate them. I think this is a great effort, and none of us want any children to have tobacco products. But I think at the end of the day, this ordinance does not solve that problem. So if it doesn't, then we're being caught into a political thing of succumbing to feel-good ordinances that don't really meet that. And so with that, I'm going to encourage, definitely the kids, that you guys, when you speak out to your friends, that's the single best message that you can do. And I commend you for that, for being strong enough for that. But I think we also need to be strong enough to send the right message that government can't solve every problem. I'd like to encourage the families out there to teach our children about the effects of good behaviors and bad behaviors and the consequences of that. For those reasons, I'm going to oppose this. I'm going to vote against it.
Howard, I'm sure you want to respond. Nope.
Well, I'm going to go for it. I don't know how much
I'm going to support it also. I don't think this rises to the level of too much government infringement on the people I've talked to about it. I went to the store over there. He said, that's no problem. It's really nothing to move it from here to there. And I think at least it shows that nobody wants kids smoking. I know it's probably more symbolic than anything else, Ralph. I'll give you that. I don't don't think it's stepping on anybody's toes too bad. Any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Next,
Louis or?
next agenda item, request board approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt comprehensive plan text amendment pertaining to family homestead subdivisions. Louis?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a request to conduct a public hearing and adopt the amendment for the creation of a new policy 110 of the future land use element pertaining to family homestead subdivisions. The board transmitted this item, this amendment to the state in February of this year. The state did not have any comments on this. Since the board already voted to transmit this, and since there have been no revisions, we're recommending adoption of this amendment to the comprehensive plan. I'd be glad to go over it with you if you'd like, or answer any questions you may have.
I would like you to go over it
Briefly.
briefly.
Okay, basically, this is an exemption from the density provisions of the comprehensive plan it allows you to convey property to an immediate family member for homestead purposes. If you have more than 20 acres, you can qualify for this. If you have less than 20 acres, but more than 2 acres, you must have owned the property as of November 30th, 1995, or it must have been willed to you by an immediate family member who owned the property as of November 30th, 1995.
Which is when the comp plan was adopted, right?
That's when the density provisions were adopted, yes. And that's basically the comprehensive plan amendment. There will be details next month as we implement land development code regulations on this.
I think this is a great thing, personally. Now, one question I did have on it before we even get a motion on it is, the zoning still stays intact. In other words, if you have 5 acres that's family land and it's zoned homes only, and all the land around you zoned homes only, you can't give your kid an acre and have him put a mobile home on it. That was one thing I was concerned about. I think this is really
That's
good.
correct.
Is there a motion on this item?
Make a motion, we conduct a public hearing and adopt a proposed comprehensive plan amendment for the creation of policy 1.10 of the future land use element pertaining to family homestead subdivisions.
I'll second for discussion.
Go ahead and discuss before we get involved up here.
I'm for it. I'm definitely for it, and I think it's a good thing to move in the right direction. I would like to take it one step further. Section 163.3179 is the Florida state statute that gives us the authority to do this. Nowhere in that statute does it reference when the property was purchased, whether it was before or after a comp plan. That statute, the intent of that statute is to make sure that families have a mechanism of taking care of each other when that need is there, and pass that property on and keep it within the family. And my thinking is when family takes care of each other, then we need less government intervention to take care of the family. So I would like to remove the reference to whether the property was purchased before or after the comp plan.
Would that rise to having to restart this thing all over again?
Yes, I think it would need to go back to planning, and then I guess we'd have to send it back through
I think it would have to go back to the state.
transmittal, yeah.
Lloyd, what was the reason that was put in there? I know that's the date the comp plan was adopted, and I know I've been talking to you about this for some time.
We had initially started off with 20 acres or more, because those are the property owners who are most affected by the density provisions.
Larger landowners.
Larger landowners. The direction of the board was to make it, to allow owners of smaller properties, and that's where we came up with the date of, if you owned it prior to the comprehensive plan, then you had certain expectations. The advantage to that approach is it does give you control and is less likely to be abused. Gadsden County, for example, had a provision on the books that did not have the ownership or lot size requirements. They did away with it because of the difficulty in enforcing this and the abuse of the policy. It is an exemption for hardships, is our argument in favor of keeping the restrictions in there.
I'd rather go ahead and pass this and have to send it all the way back through. I'm not saying I disagree with you at all, but there is some logic. If you bought the property in 2000 and it was 10 acres and it was future land use ag, you knew that when you bought it. But if you inherited it from your grandma and the county changed it, you know what I mean? So you couldn't, about it, that's what I had the real heartburn with. But if you went into it with your eyes open,
I agree, but it's also never the intent of the state statute to tie it to that. I don't know when the state statute was adopted, but maybe that would be a better time frame. I don't know. I think if the intent is to help families and allow families to pass land to other family members, then I'd rather see us be consistent with state statute.
we are rolling back regulations here, this is not
Absolutely.
a new reg, this is rolling back.
I guess I'm just trying to take an extra
I
step.
understand. Yes, sir. Hal?
Yeah, I think this is a very good, I think it's a very good thing to do. But if we ignore that date, then even though we're not changing the zoning, we really are not paying attention to the zoning, because we're going to increase density for whoever. This is really structured to say, listen, we put in this comp plan for those that bought property after that. You knew what you were buying, you knew what the zoning was there, and this is what it is. The next item we have is more of a hardship item, but I think this is good the way it stands.
Richard?
Well, I fully agree with this. I think this is something that we need to do. And if the board did decide as a whole to go forward with taking the date out, I would be in favor of that as well. But I know at this point we've brought it we've brought it this far, and I think we need to carry it on. That's like, I'll give you an example. My family's had our land since 1859. It's passed down from generation to generation, but as it gets down to where the point where you're not able to do this, and this is going to make it a lot more available for many families out there that's just like my own, that continues to pass the land and be able to carry it on.
This resolves most issues for historical property owners, I think.
And I'm for it. I'm not going to vote against it because it's going in the right direction. I hear Richard say that he would be for bringing it back and removing the
Yes.
date. I don't know if
I think
if any of the rest of you are, then we'll bring
I'd
it
just
back.
soon move forward, because I know what we got now.
Well, I'm saying move forward with this and then bring the other back.
I can agree with that.
If there's agreement on that. If not, I'll vote for it and I'll drop it tonight.
Well, let's talk about that in our discussion. Bob Danzy? I know Bob's opposed to it.
My name's Bob Danzy. Thank you for letting me speak. I'll make it short. It sounds like y'all got it all covered. I agree with what your general consensus is, and I'd like to see it move forward. I like Ralph's idea, but something's better than nothing. Thank you.
Any more? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next.
Thank you. The next agenda item, request board approval to conduct a public hearing to consider text amendments to sections 2.4, 65.1, and sections 5-7, 1 of the Land Development Code pertaining to family enclave agreements and amendments to the family enclave agreement policy.
Motion on this one, I'd like to, whoever makes the motion, if they would, I'd personally like to see us take out the financial hardship provision on this. Medical hardship, fine, but I don't think you need to have both. If one of my kin is dying and I want to be close to them, it shouldn't matter,
Well, can I clarify? I think we ought to leave medical or financial in, but not have a financial qualifier. Not have everyone qualify as low income.
Well, if you do that though, if you say or, then that means you could do this only on financial benefits, which I don't think that is the intent of this.
No, I'm saying medical or financial.
I know. So you could do it on financial alone,
Right.
without a medical component whatsoever. And then I think we're going to have a rush of, say people lose their job, now they're going to want to live in an RV next to their parents' house. I don't think that was the intent. The intent was compassionate, medical conditions. Again, I would suggest remove financial altogether and just say medical. It's very clear to define, because financial situations could change from day to day and week to week.
Financial hardship is a true hardship, just
Well, I understand.
just
I'm
like a
not saying
medical
it's not,
hardship,
but I
especially in today's economy.
I don't think it meets the,
I would like to see both the financial and the medical removed, because there's there's some people, you know, that might not be able to meet one but meet the other, but I believe if somebody wants to take care of their family or their parent, or if a parent wants to take care of their child, they should be able to provide for them to do that, even in the RV, you know, so I look at the financial and both the financial and the medical aspect of this being a restriction that would prevent someone from caring for their family.
Well, okay. But I think if we go that far, we're gonna be opening up a can of worms. If you say you could park an RV at your parents' house for whatever reason you want to and live there, I really think that's going beyond the scope, the spirit of it. Howard, go ahead. That's just my opinion.
Okay, what was the vote on the planning and zoning?
It was 8-1 against. There was a motion made to approve it, but it failed 1-8, basically.
Because of the income qualifier, correct?
The discussion was the income issue and the medical hardship issue as well.
Well, in the agenda item, it says, found displeasure with the requirement that both a medical and a financial hardship be present.
I think what's going on here is we're trying to make one, this is too discombobulated the way it stands right now. We're trying to cover two different things in one ordinance, and I think that's where part of the pain of the planning and zoning recommendation came from, was that they thought it would be totally useless at the level that the economic level was set, the very lowest, that those people that are involved in that kind of economic crisis would not have the means to even take advantage of this.
To buy an RV, for example.
Exactly. But I think you have to be looking at possibly increasing that. I think there's two different issues. There's the issue of medical, and just like you were saying, and the issue of economic hardship. But the economic hardship was set so low that it really turned off the Planning and Zoning Board, and I think they were sending us a message that something needs to be done, and I think this thing needs to be worked. I don't think it's right the way it is.
I agree, and I have several, modifications I'd like to make to it before I'd be comfortable with it.
And that's fine if we're gonna go down, if we're gonna postpone, that's fine, but the whole reason this came up is because the family hardship right now, as it stands today, says the only thing you can move in next to your parents to take care of them is a mobile home. And as you all know, when you have a mobile home, you gotta have a separate septic tank, you gotta have a well. There's no way somebody's gonna pay to set up a mobile home and then remove it 6 months later if their parent passes away or if they get better. That's why I brought this up, because it's just totally unrealistic. When you see places with two mobile homes next to each other, that's probably what it is. So my thought when I brought this up was, if you're going to take care of your ailing parent, you can do it in an RV or a camper or whatever, because you're not going to live there for years and years. You're only supposed to be there temporarily.
That aspect of it I agree with. It's just a part that I get hung up on is the financial and the medical.
I would basically, my opinion would be just medical and age. If you've got an older parent, grandparent, or whatever, they need to be taken care of.
I would go for on medical hardship alone. If we can't reach consistency, we need to bring us back another time.
Well, here's like an example. With the economy the way it is, and so many young couples start off with 2 jobs, they end up with no jobs. They don't have the financial resources to even rent an apartment. So their parents have a place. If they make that, if the parents don't meet the economic level that exists here,
They can still move in with their parents. They just can't park an RV in their yard and live there.
and if the parents don't have a house that's big enough to take in their young family, that's where that RV.
Or how about this, just to get things moving along? If somebody wants to bring back a separate family enclave related to financial situations, that's fine. But there is a consensus. I'd at least like to move forward with this one on the medical. If there's not, then we'll bring it back.
Well, my thought as far as moving forward, first we've got to ask the question why we're doing this. The only reason to have a family enclave is to help families that are in need. If we don't want to help them, we can just get rid of this thing altogether and say, sorry, you're on your own. But if we want to help them, we need to have a mechanism that truly helps them and not ties their hands down the road. I like the idea of the RV, but my preference would be give them the choice of the mobile home or the RV. It may be that the mobile home might be a better deal for them, and now we've taken that restriction away from them. I would also, this ordinance as written would give a 1-year period of time extended up to 6 months. So after a year and a half, you've got to pull out, no matter, which way we go. But I'd like to see us remove that. I'd like to say 1 year, and let's renew it in 1-year increments, but allow it to be renewed until the problem removes itself.
Louis, how many family enclave or Melissa mobile homes has actually been removed?
A small handful.
Out of how many? What percentage? 5%?
Say maybe 20%, 15, 20%.
So 15 or 20% of all the family enclaves that have ever been removed, they've actually removed the trailer.
Correct.
And they no longer qualify to be an enclave.
That's correct.
So that's a code enforcement problem. That's separate than this.
And that's what Gadsden County ran into with their enforcement issues.
Well, it almost sounds like to me we're not going to get a consensus.
I think we need to strike this down as it is right now and just revisit it and bring it back as a whole new thing.
All right, what would y'all do different? Or just forget about the whole thing?
No, I don't think we should.
We don't need to forget about it, we just need to tweak
We need to
it.
give them a little direction. If they're going to bring it back, what do you want different?
I think for a starter, at least look at the level of the economic hardship that was set. I think it was set way too low.
I had suggested get rid of it altogether. Would you go with that?
Well, that was a suggestion of getting rid of it altogether and then just deal with the medical portion of it, okay?
That
Which
was
is an
fine.
easier portion to deal with. And then if the board so desires, come back with another one on economic
Think
hardship.
you go for that, Jerry?
Basically, I can see somebody who may have never had a job, maybe never wants a job, probably wouldn't take a job if he had it. Now he can move his body in next to his mother.
There'll always be abuses with everything.
Well, there might be a whole lot of abuses, it makes it very easy for that fellow who's never done anything or doesn't want to ever do anything to just move in.
That's why I think we do need to keep medical and financial criteria in there. If I've got a 90-year-old grandmother and medically she's fine, but she makes $600 a month in Social Security, and so she needs help financially, that's just as big a concern. Or a child has, lost his job.
Can we get something done here with the medical part? If you want to bring back something on financial, because I almost think it's starting over again if we change it, like you're suggesting. I think if we remove the financial hardship, we don't need to start over. Is that correct?
I think we'll be okay with there. This isn't a comp plan amendment, it's an LDC amendment, so you have a little bit more latitude.
And then we
than
can
the last one.
have time to digest that a little bit more about the finance, because like Jerry said, there's a lot of things, a lot of unforeseen.
Right.
Can you go with that?
And I can go with that, and I'd like to make this comment. When you're dealing with something that's medical is not going to be forever, okay? So there's an end point there. Well, there's an end point with all of us also.
One way or another, that's right.
That's right. But the other issue is that you could have someone that is in good economic situation, but that parent is struggling, and the choice is, do you put the parent in a nursing home? Do you put the parent in assisted living, which you can't afford? So it's like whatever those prices are, they're out of range. So you as a
Wouldn't that qualify as a medical hardship, though?
absolutely, and that's why the medical could stand by itself without the economic, and then we can, if we want to, look at the economic separately.
Okay, let's let the citizens talk, and we'll try to move forward with that, just to get something.
Yeah.
Chuck? Huh? No, we don't have a motion.
Yeah, there's not even been a motion on
All right, well, good thing we didn't make one. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to amend this amendment to remove the financial qualifier and just leave the medical.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
Okay. It's not the first time we've talked about items before,
Yeah.
making motions on them. I actually think it's helpful. Chuck?
It's not often I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, but this is
Chuck,
one of
we
those
agree
cases.
all the time.
medical exemption makes sense. The financial one, I can see lots of abuse coming forward. There's a whole host of issues on that one. Make sure, I think what you're doing is the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, if it wasn't for me and Chuck, y'all wouldn't have anything to do, would you? My name's Bob Danzy. I thought about this some, and I thought, well, if you're doing this for just medical, and you're gonna make a person that's in a wheelchair get up in a camper, then you've taken the mobile home from them. I don't get that. Now, what I think y'all were thinking was me moving to my parents to help them, but it might not be that that's the way that goes. It may be that my parents moved to me because of financial hardships. So I'd like to see the financial hardship come back, and I do have sympathy for that somebody's going to abuse it. I probably could even name a few people that would abuse it. I understand the financial thing, but it may be that that the sick person moves to the well person's residence, and then they've got to get in and out of a camper of some sort, recreational vehicle. So that's what I wanted to bring up, to at least consider that, and if you will, my vote goes for doing something for the financial side of it, so please don't forget it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify Bob's point real quick, that the purpose of the ordinance that it states here is placement, blah, blah, blah. So it's to allow a family member of the person living in the primary dwelling to provide assistance during times of medical or financial hardship. So in other words, the primary residence is supposed to have the person in that needs help. That is spelled out in here. Charlotte Sizemore?
Yes, sir. My name is Charlotte Sizemore, and I wanted to address the board on the family enclave. I would appreciate the allowing the recreation vehicles, but on the restrictions that you have, when you go into the medical, do you know you're going to get into HIPAA laws? When I have to tell you that I am sick and what's wrong with me and why my family has to take care of me, aren't we going to be infringing on HIPAA laws? And also with the financial needs, I'm on a widow's pension right now, and it would take about 2/3 of what I make for me to rent a home in this county. And my children do not have the room in their home for me, and I want to put my fifth will out there. My husband just recently passed away, and so it would make it a whole lot easier for me and for them if I could be there with them and by them. And I would like for you to include the recreation vehicles. And also, I understand it's a lot easier to hook a truck up to my recreation vehicle and move it than it is to hook it up to a trailer and pull it out. And somebody that's on the lower income can afford an RV a lot more than they can a trailer or mobile home, or whatever you want to call it. And so that's my concerns, and I would really appreciate you readdressing it and allowing for the recreation vehicles. The way that I read over what you had was voting on tonight, it looked to me like not only was it my income he was looking at, but it was my children's income also, the way it was stated. And I don't have a medical need, but I do have a need to be up with my children right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any more discussion?
She fits exactly what I was trying to say about that it needs to be, someone needs to be, the aspect of it allowing someone for an RV, that needs to be in there, but I'm trying to say that they have to be either medical or financial. There's a lot of people that's gonna be out, but if we strike out both the financial and the medical, I believe we will help the maximum number of people.
We can't strike it out without starting over. I'd really like to see us pass the medical part. If somebody wants to bring back a financial family enclave issue, let's talk about that then. If we can move ahead.
I think if we could evaluate everybody as this lady was here, then basically we would all agree that whatever she needs, we would provide. I think if we go ahead and pass the medical and come back and work on the financial, just to try to make sure that it's not abused. In your case, you would pass easily, but there's some folks that's gonna jump right on this thing immediately.
Is there any appetite at all for, it currently allows mobile homes, and we're talking about switching that with RVs. Any appetite for making either or, where they can do mobile home or
But I
RV?
just seen how many problems this has caused. That was the whole reason I brought this up.
So you're saying if we do this, it would be strictly only RVs?
Only RV?
Yes, that's the way it was written. It removes mobile homes, is what it does.
So if someone owns a mobile home on their own piece of land and they would like to relocate it next to their child, that option's gonna be out. They've got to go buy an RV where they already own a mobile home.
It's out by zoning laws anyway, so yes.
Depending on the age of the home, they could still relocate a used mobile
You
home.
can't relocate a mobile home to your parents' house. Now, what we just did earlier, you're gonna probably get scoffed at for saying if they had a big enough piece of property, they could cut it out for their kid to live on, if it was zoned for that. But no, you're right. You could not take a mobile home and park it next to your mom or dad's house if this passes. You can,
Right, if
doesn't
it
pass.
passes. But if we allow mobile homes or RVs, then you could. That option would be available.
But the mobile home would kick in the zoning.
The zoning and the age, as long as we can meet those criteria, you would be able to
Yeah, but
allow.
that in a
That defeats the
whole
whole
other
purpose of-
ball of wax. Why even do that,
The issue was, people get family enclave agreements, the mobile home never gets moved out. So your neighbor now has two mobile homes on their property.
So why can't we address that separately as a code issue?
I tell you, why don't we solve this by going ahead with the medical, and Ms. Oz is here, and she can agree that we need to have a workshop on this.
Well,
Because we're not gonna get there tonight because there's so many issues about what
hey,
kinds of...
throw the baby out with bathwater and get. So you want to allow mobile homes?
I do. I haven't heard anybody else jump on that, so, but to me, if we're trying to help people, we need to increase their options, not decrease their options. Or determine we don't want to help them, and I do want to help them.
That's
Well, I
a little
want to help them as
harsh,
well.
Ralph. Everybody loves people, not just.
No, I'm not throwing against anyone else,
Everybody wants
because
to
I
help.
commend you. I think this is a good idea, but I think that, there are people that are in mobile homes now, under family enclaves, that are not abusing it, that are true legitimate
Stay there.
needs.
They can stay there.
Absolutely. But the folks that are abusing it, we have other mechanisms that we can take care of that.
This doesn't say if you have a family enclave agreement today, that tomorrow you gotta remove it.
I understand.
You're vested. This is for future family enclave agreements. The spirit of the law, as it was written by the founding fathers, and whoever wrote it, was for medical compassion for your parent or whatever.
And are you okay with a maximum year and a half? That's it. And she has to move out after a year and a half.
That's the way it is now, isn't it?
I mean, that's,
1 year. 1 year now. 1 year now.
1 year now.
I think we should change that.
I mean,
If we're gonna help people, we need to help them until.
Well, but you've got to have some timetable in there to reevaluate. You just can't have it open-ended.
I think if we do that, then we're creating additional hardship for people like this lady here, because now we're allowing her to do it, she's got to pay to set up, and then a year from now, or a year and a half from now, we're gonna make her move again. So all we're doing is kicking it down the road.
It's a temporary use, it's not a permanent deal.
Until, well, I agree, but in my mind, it should be a temporary use until the problem has been
Well,
eliminated.
how are we gonna know that problem's subsided?
They have to reapply, whether we do it a medical or a financial, they have to reapply.
We gotta have that ticker in there of a year to be able to
Ralph, I agree
reapply.
with that. I agree with making it a
Right.
year, and I agree with renewing it in 1 year increments. I just don't think that there should be a limit of a year and a half, because if it's a medical need, is the medical need gonna be solved in a year and a half?
if you'll vote for this, I'll go along with that.
Well, there's a lot of-
Review it every year. If it's,
I will.
because the
That
person,
particular,
eventually, like Howard said, the good Lord gets us all one day, so, I mean, there is an endpoint.
Well, let me ask you a question. Okay, being
We're
that,
spinning our tires here, guys. We need to either
Well-
move on or.
well, it's already been done, addressed, this is probably gonna have to be workshop. There's a lot of variables, a lot of things to be looked at, and there's a lot of things wrong with how this is written. If, I would be in favor of just voting this down as it's written. Let's do the workshop, get everything like it needs to be, and then bring it back with all of the changes in one motion. You know, instead of piecemealing
Dr.
it.
Kessler has a question.
Yeah, some questions just there. With the family enclaves that are out there now, I thought we had put in place a tickler where those were reviewed every year. Is that being done?
That has historically been done, but we have still run into the issue where compliance has not always been easy to achieve. And a comprehensive overview of all of them has not been done since 2009. That was the last time that the Board of County Commissioners considered them. And at that time, if I remember correctly, the board had directed staff that they could be reviewed annually by staff for the next 3 years. And then after that, they would have to come back before the board for approval again, all of them.
You want to talk about making us into big bad government, you go to somebody 2 years later and say, you got to move your mobile home you just spent $12,000 setting up, because we say you do. If there's 2 other votes to move ahead with the medical removed, then let's vote
I'm
on
going to be supporting it.
it. Okay.
Financial removed.
I'm going to be supporting it.
So as far as the financial, but then if we do the medical, we can still come back and look at that.
You want to bring an agenda item back financial? I'll be happy to look at it.
So
Just
can
want to
we,
do something.
can we also get the year or year and a half time frame lifted?
Howard, you fine with that? If it's a yearly review, if the condition's still there, they qualify for it?
Yes,
I'd be in favor with visiting it every year.
I'd make it a year, not a year and a half, just make it every year.
Yeah, well,
year.
I just say year and a half, because as written now, it's a year, and then it says we can come back and extend it for a 6-month period of time. So do it for a year initially, review it every year, and if they qualify, we give them another year each time until that medical hardship has been eliminated.
So, okay, so just want to clarify that this is strictly striking out the financial. They get to do the RV, we visit it every year, but they're still going to have the medical in there.
Correct.
So this is something more than what we've got now, even though it may not be perfect.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Which is the beauty of why there's not one person up here making a decision.
That's right. All right, all for the motion?
Was the motion, the amended ordinance fine, Commissioner Kessler? Were you good with the changes? Did you change your
No, ma'am.
motion?
No,
To remove the financial and to remove the 18-month maximum?
well, it was amended, well, take it as a,
Talk about.
Well, I know, but
yeah, we have to put in that, we have to make, so we have to amend the motion.
yeah.
You made a motion, right?
Okay, the motion will, I amend my motion to include the review on an annual basis.
And to remove the financial requirements?
financial
Okay.
I want to ask one more thing, okay, now,
Second.
back to Ms. Sizemore.
Wait a second on that.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, back to what Ms. Sizemore mentioned earlier, okay, if we leave the medical in there, even though she wants to go be with her children and they're gonna help take care of her, if she doesn't meet a certain medical, does that mean she wouldn't be able to go?
Exactly
Right.
right. Unless one of y'all brings back an item to address that. That's exactly what it means.
As it's on the table right now.
Right.
Yes.
All right, okay, in order to move this forward right now and help some, I'll vote with this, but I do intend to bring that portion back
Excellent.
at a future meeting.
All for the motion?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
I'm glad we've increased our code enforcement. Folks, 'cause y'all are adding to it tonight.
All right, we wanted to go ahead and do awards and presentations.
Yep.
Acknowledgement of the Fair Housing Coloring Contest winners.
Good afternoon, County Administrator and Commissioners. My name is Wally Sakab with Meridian Community Services. In celebration of fair housing, we decided to do something to engage the community through families, through a coloring contest, and also to celebrate Fair Housing Month, which is in the month of April. So tonight we want to recognize the winners of the contest. We invited all of the elementary and middle school kids to participate, either whether they were in public school, private school, or homeschool. And I'd like to announce the first winner for the age group of 7 to 9, and that is Aaron Fortier. And what I'm going to do is have the children stand there, and that way we can...
You want us up here, didn't you?
And they They did get monetary awards too, so Aaron is receiving $50 tonight for being a first place winner. Second place winner, Hannah Pachard. Hannah gets a certificate and $25. Congratulations, Hannah. And Deanna Albert. Is Deanna here? Well, Deanna is our third place winner, and I'll be sure to send this in the mail to her. Next, I'll announce and I'm sorry, I neglected to mention this, but we have the artwork here for you all to see as I announce them. There you go. And we have first place winner 10 through 12, Adriana Fortier. Is Adriana here? Okay. We have McKenna Roddenberry, second place winner. Congratulations. Okay. Third place winner, Doresha Jones, third place. Did I say your name wrong? What is it, sweetie? I saw her face, Doresha. I'm sorry. Congratulations to you. Thank you all.
Let's take a picture.
Okay, yes. Okay, thanks.
Stand in front.
Y'all step forward there.
Thank you all.
Wonderful.
That's a whole lot more fun than this other stuff we do.
Yeah. We'll give you a second for the kids to, I'm sure they don't want to stick around.
We have a new way of doing our agenda items now.
Yeah, incredible.
It actually brings.
All right, Mr. Harry Reid.
Speaking of fun.
Harry loves being
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Harry Reid, the Executive Director of the Capital Region Transportation Planning Agency. You know, it's been a while since I've been before you, but we wanted to give you a little bit of an update on some things that we've been working on related to transportation in Wakulla County. The DOT, we've been working with them to move forward this study that we've talked about issues related to the widening of 319, and they're about ready to finally issue that study requirement, which will look at all the needs and what we can do in the interim before we can finally get to the point of truly widening the road. The other thing is the intersections. We've identified those, and those are one of the things we want them to concentrate on as part of this study, see what we can do to address the intersection needs prior to the other construction that may be part of it. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is that you've been contacted regarding making 319 from Capitol Circle, or actually from the airport all the way down to US 98 as a strategic intermodal system, which will really elevate that segment of roadway for funding. As you know, that's the primary area that they're doing it, so they're pushing on that, and we're continuing to do it. We passed a resolution with CRTPA in support of it, and I know that you all have. Leon County is in support of it as well. As far as the Ocklawackney Bay Bike Trail, continuing to work with David Edwards to get more funding for it, but I did want to note that in the legislature this year, they passed funding for about $50 million to complete the Central Florida Trail. We think this is a good thing because it's going to tie into what we're trying to do related to the capital city to the sea trails, which the consultant will be down in a few weeks to give you a briefing on exactly what we're getting ready to do with that. The other issue they've been contacted about that we're working with DOT on is I know there's a sidewalk need on Wakulla Road between the Senior Center and US 319. We see that as a safety issue. We've continued to push that, and talked to Keith about moving that project forward from the CTST and getting an application filed for that. So that will be the other big thing. And in addition, I've been in touch with Bob Ballard of TCC regarding the Institute. I want to work with them as far as the site plan, make sure we provided sufficient access points to that site so that we won't have traffic issues in the future. So we'll continue to look at that and look at, as part of the trail system, we won't even tie it in with that because I know there's going to be a number of students down here probably living in the area, so we want to provide those kinds of access. So, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead, Jerry.
I have a question. We've been talking about the sidewalks down at Panacea. We have sort of like a senior center, have a lot of folks down there on little three-wheel mopeds, whatever, and we've been telling them they're going to get sidewalks since I've been in town, and I keep hearing we're going to get sidewalks, but we never do. I don't know if that comes under you or if that comes under the county.
I think that's the number 2 project on CTST, and the pointer from the senior center was the number 1 project.
Our folks down in Panacea ride their little chairs. Hover-rounds? Yeah. They ride those things on 98 Highway. So we need to try to get them off 98 Highway if we can.
Well, that's part of what we'd like to look at as part of the Capital City to the Sea Trail Program is doing that. That's one of the connections we're looking at, is going all the way from St. Mark's over to Sopchoppy and further south to tie into the Ocklawackney Bay Trail as well.
Yeah.
So see if we can't make that part of it. Continue to work with David to see about those other funding opportunities we can identify to see if we can address those issues and needs that you have.
You can ask Harry. I push for sidewalks for our county hard at almost every meeting.
It only takes money, and that's what we got find.
We only need about 200 yards, 300 yards. Really, we just need those folks to have a sidewalk to get to the grocery store and to the post office.
I understand, Commissioner, and that's why we're looking for all opportunities from this standpoint, safety being one of the big ones, and the DOT is very big on that particular aspect of it. Now it's being pushed very much at the federal level too. So
The bigger fish to fry too. That's not important. Our intersections are now number 1 on whatever group they're in. I guess we'll start with the blocks on the Brook South. I think that's number 1, but they are number 1 on the priority list.
right.
And there was some discussion. I think I've talked about some discussion items about shifting some money around maybe from the Blairstone Road or wherever it is by
Yeah,
Governor Square. So
We're still having discussions with DOT on that, and like I said, it's just it's a matter of money if we can get it done. Okay.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
All right. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I just wanted to make one announcement, if I might.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
On May 18th, we'll be doing those sports physicals for the county. It'll be done at the TMH satellite facility, and I just want to make sure people are aware of that. May 18th, Saturday.
Is there a motion on the modified consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. Howard, item 12 on the consent.
Right.
Are we going to take Summerwood?
I'm sorry.
Summerwood, that's right. Thank you, Heather.
Don't mind?
Nope, not at all.
All right, let's go straight to Summerwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is requesting board approval to adopt a resolution accepting deeds of dedication of right-of-way along Summerwood Drive pursuant to previous board direction, I think, I don't know, Brett, about a year ago?
May 21st.
May 21st, it's ingrained in his memory, it's seared. But he's been working very diligently, and we've been providing some assistance to...
I make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
Okay, I think of the 15 people that are filled out to speak, I'm pretty sure I can speak to the board that this is going to pass. Howard, are you...
Yes, but I'd like to have a discussion on it as well.
let's go ahead and get discussion out of the way. We got a motion and a second. Howard, what did you want to discuss?
So I just want to make sure that, and I am in favor of this, that this will be precedent setting, and I think this should be done. I'm in favor of it being done, but that we all should understand that in similar situations where dirt roads in areas that previously were not taken by the county, if others come forward, they need to be treated in an equal manner.
Absolutely.
And so that,
I agree with you.
you know, and it's a large budgetary impact. It's not just the little bit of, you know, I'm not sure where that number came from, but I won't get into the discussion of the grading there. But as these roads come on, this is going to have a significant budgetary impact, and I just want the board to be on board and willing to shoulder that.
Absolutely. If they're willing to do the effort that these guys did.
Incredible effort.
Yes, sir.
Is anybody else going to have a problem with this item?
No, sir.
The 15 people, you're right to speak if you want. I recommend you don't in time to save time. It's going to pass, but if you really want to talk, I'll go ahead and... Does anybody fill out card really want to talk? Okay.
Brett Hammond, the 306 Summerwood Drive. Just a couple points of clarification. With that, I brought with me tonight all the original conveyances short of Lot 20, which you will have by the end of the week. I have that. Now, but the clarification I have, do I need to take them to the courthouse and record them? Or do I give them to you, and does the county record them?
We'll record them.
You'll record them. That's it.
I have one question for staff.
Go ahead.
With the one property that
Lot
still...
10.
Yeah, how are we handling that?
Well, Lot 10, we're actually still looking at that. We didn't want to, that's the situation where we have a deed from the property owner, but we don't have a release from the bank. And we're sort of batting that around from a legal perspective as how to handle that. We didn't want to hold this one up because we have some mortgage release extensions that were going to expire, and we didn't want to have to go through that process again with the banks, so we brought this ahead of you. But we'll bring an item back on how we recommend dealing with Lot 10.
If it were up to me, I'd say don't worry about the bank, but... Okay, does anybody else really want to speak? If not, all for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Brett. Very good. You just got to increase your property values.
I think half the room's going to be out, so we'll give y'all a chance to leave. Slide out. Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work, Brett.
They really wanted that road.
I mean, and most won't go to that effort, but he went to an extreme effort.
All right, Howard, you want to go ahead and pick up item 12?
Yeah, let me find it. Okay. So, item 12 and item 13, I am going to be supporting both of those, but the reason I pulled them is that both of these are one bid awards. And I had a conversation with the county administrator, Mr. Edwards, and I'm just concerned that there might be something in our bidding process, especially on the small jobs, that may discourage our local vendors from participating.
Number 13 is local.
I understand that. And he's done some very good work for us for a long time. But in this economic environment, I'm very surprised, especially on the small jobs, that we don't have more local.
And we do have a local preference too, by the way.
Yes, but, so, I don't know if it deals with bonding requirements on small.
We changed that. That was during your little break you had. We changed the bonding requirements for projects under 100,000, right, Heather?
Under 175.
Under 175, you don't have to post a performance bond.
do not have
It's
to.
one of the first things.
Okay.
Unless there's individual determination
I don't-
made,
yeah.
it would be in the bid doc.
And
That was-
that's something that, one of these went out with that, but we took care of it, but you're right, and we're gonna be also coming back, we're gonna be coming back with some purchasing policy changes to hopefully
Okay.
address this.
That was my concern.
That is a big concern.
And that's my only concern with these two.
Okay, can we take that as a motion to approve 12 and 13?
Yes.
I second the motion.
All right, any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All right, Howard, 15?
Actually, I let Harry go. Oh, Harry's here. I just wanted to, could you come up for a second, Harry? Maybe just take care of the question.
Go ahead.
In the interlocal agreement, the new one, is there any major changes as compared with the old one?
No, so the only thing that we did change was we took a lot of the administrative requirements or things that were addressed from an administrative standpoint out of there, mainly because if they change it, and put them in the bylaws, such as the voting apportionment, because if that changes, then we don't have to get it done by having everybody re-sign the agreement. We can do that in the bylaws, and that's required by the state, by every 10 years, is to reevaluate the voting apportionment. There's a few other things that were done from that standpoint, but the major reason, again, was so we wouldn't have to come back and redo the agreement, but just take care of the administrative things within the bylaws, which then the board would just pass. So, but from that standpoint, that we didn't change anything other than update the statutes.
Thank you.
Right.
So motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion is second, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Item 16, Howard.
Yes. So I was asked to approve this item. I think I may have wanted to pull it myself before that request came in. And the reason why I'm pulling this item is, if you go on attachment 1 down to page 2, we have code enforcement. And this is a person who had been working in planning and zoning, is now going to be in code enforcement, so we'll have 2 code enforcement officers. And that gets to my question of where the, to double our code enforcement staff and to not support them, I see as a major problem. So that was the reason for my pulling this.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion on the side of that? What, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go ahead and get a motion. We got a
Okay.
speaker.
I'll approve that. Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
All right, you?
Ralph. You second that.
Thank you, Commissioner. You don't need a new code enforcement guy, he knows, and I told you I'm free, new one. What I'm worried about is enforcing. Code enforcement without enforcement, it's coming back to the 22 grand, guys, that I wasn't available to, I wasn't privileged to witness or speak to, but is it going to be enforced? Here's, Mr. Ludlow is, down here quite a bit about the sign ordinance. Worried. Here it is, it's 15 pages. Does Mr. Ludlow have to worry now? You don't have to worry, because precedent's been set, right? Do I have to let them load up? I've had plenty of complaints, believe me, and I'm street legal. But, so I just let them load up. Load up and buy. So, is it let's not have any traffic lights because of that's more law? Do I have to obey the traffic law? This is basically about enforcing what you have, what you're not doing. And selective enforcement, which means
us over there to get her, just over there they don't. That's not fair. It happens to me, I think everybody's got a story. But, either enforce it or don't. The billboard, the Lamar billboard that was illegal, I requested a copy of the permit. There is no permit. Temporary sign, 319 in Shadeville. Am I the only one? Is it citizen oversight that gets ordinances enforced?
Is this about the mid-year budget amendment, sir, or is this something?
Yes, sir. It's adding a code enforcement officer and enforce what you got before you add one. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Passes. And we're gonna be having a lot of talk about that later, so it'll probably be good to stick around for that. All right, here we go, number 17.
This is, yes, Chairman. This agenda item requests board approval of the terms between the Wakulla County and the YMCA for operation of the community center and approval of a budget amendment reallocating funds for the community center. In an effort to execute a contract with the YMCA, staff requests the board first approve the proposed terms which are attached. Once the terms are approved, staff will work with the YMCA and the county attorney to draft a contract which will come back to the board for approval at a future date. Do you want me to read through all the provisions, or you guys have already done that?
You all read the provisions of the YMCA proposal?
I got some discussion.
That's fine, but I mean, everybody read it. You relatively understand it. Okay? I don't think you need to read the whole thing.
All right.
Basically, it's YMCA coming in and running some youth programs.
We need a motion.
Community center. And my understanding, is it going to be free? No. We are going to have to pay the utilities, right, David?
Right.
There is some cost associated with it, but as far as, and there is a capital cost associated with the buildings, but there is no ongoing staff or operational costs. It's not free. You have to pay the power bill, I think, for what, 2 or 3 years, David?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I'm going to support it. I know this is a controversial issue, but I think the bang for the buck is pretty good on it. So that's my 2 cents. I'll let everybody else talk.
We need a motion on the floor. We please, somebody need a motion.
Well, can I allow discussion on it before we have a motion? I've done it several times.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I can,
Unless you want to make a motion.
well, I'll make the motion that we approve the terms between the county and YMCA relating to the community center. And option number 3, approving the budget amendment, reallocating $250,000 from the 1-cent sales tax public facility infrastructure fund to the community center.
Is there a second on that motion?
I second for discussion.
Okay. Now we can discuss. Katie, you got any close? Go ahead.
All right, basically speaking, when we took the vote for the community center to become, let's say, the YMCA center, the community center, I wanted to have the fire and EMS and county offices. I missed that. I didn't get that across, and I made a mistake that I saw my proposal would not carry, so I voted with everybody else on their proposal. That was a mistake that I made, and I will not make that mistake again, because if I don't agree with something, I won't agree with the majority anymore. One of the things that bothers me on this is when we had to vote for the community center to go possibly to the YMCA, I kept hearing that this was going to be, we were going to do our improvements with grants, and the grants were going to pay the cost of going forward and so forth. Well, it immediately, before you can turn around, we have popped $250,000 of county money into this project.
500.
How much?
500. 497,000.
497. Well, we had 300 and something. We had a grant for something. How many dollars?
Grants for 349.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, somehow we found another $250,000 of county money that I didn't know we had. We talk about going broke, we talk about taxes, we talk about maybe not having enough But we have just thrown $250,000 into this project. I don't trust government myself. I think, basically speaking, this is not the first and only $250,000 we'll put in there. I think it'll be like a bottom hole that we'll just keep throwing money in and money in and money in. I think we can better invest our money for our children in recreation instead of the community center.
Are you withdrawing your second now?
Well, I'm just, I will withdraw my second. But we need to save that money because we're not over our budget yet. We may come back to the citizens and want more money out of them. And I just don't think we ought to be spending our money. It was my understanding we were going to do this with grants. I went along with that. I'm sorry I did. But I'm going to object. Every time you put money into this program, I'm going to object to it.
Okay, so Jerry's withdrawing his second. Is anybody else going to second the motion?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
And I agree. I guess I need clarification because I see 250,000 from capital outlay, and then I see 247,000. I guess I misunderstood. Looks like to me there's $497,035 showing as an increase on our budget amendment. So I don't understand that.
That was the budget amendment passed on the consent agenda, or is that?
No, that's part of this item.
It's just the 250,000 is the,
Where are you seeing that, Ralph?
It's on page
On the budget amendment.
177 of the agenda.
all we're doing is balancing we're just moving funds around. So if you look at the net down there, still the increase equals the decrease.
So the difference between 497 and 658 is $250,000?
Well, we've got two increase lines. We've got 250 for capital outlay, and then we've got 247,035 for capital outlay.
That's the share, that's right.
So, but we are talking about spending
It's
$497,000.
$250,000, 247,035.
For the community center, the 277 for the sheriff's investigations building.
That's right, and that's
Both
that
included
moves,
on this one.
that, what it was,
They ship the money around.
is the sheriff's money we're moving to next year.
Explain that a little more thoroughly, because I think it's important that it is explained. That this $250,000, you just fall out of thin air.
That's right. This, the way it works is basically, the 277 was scheduled this year to be
1
spent.
cent sales
1
tax.
cent sales tax for the sheriff's department building. That, when we've also got impact fees, dollars that we're gonna put towards that. We're gonna start that construction probably in August or September at the earliest. Therefore, we will not need the 277 this year. We had budgeted 300 last year, so we're going, for next year, we had budgeted $300,000 for an animal control facility. All we're gonna do is we're pulling that 250 of that 277 down to use for the community center, and then taking the 300,000 for the animal control and pulling that up to take care of the sheriff's office next year to replenish that 277.
I know this sounds ludicrous, but 2 years from now, instead of spending $300,000 that was budgeted for a dog pound, we're gonna instead spend it, most of it, on the community center.
Right.
So,
And not do the dog pound.
That's right.
Right?
I'm not sure I get it, but let's try. So we're talking the 250,000 is gonna be spent on the community center.
Right. New money.
But the 247,000 is not gonna be spent on the community center? Or it is, but it was just budgeted, so it's not new money, it was already there.
Greg can explain that. That's his mechanics there. Somebody's really good at moving money around.
Man, right there.
He asked for $250,000, and so I found it.
You're gonna have to find a lot more if you keep this up.
I don't disagree with that, but you'll notice that under the 247, look under the account code, you'll see the SH, that's the sheriff's office. There was $381,000 in a reserve for the sheriff's facility and area, and so it was going to be spent next year, and so instead we'll spend it this year. We'll spend 247 of it this year. We're just moving
On what?
on the sheriff's annex.
Okay, but not on the community center?
Right.
Okay.
250 in the community center.
Yes, that's correct.
The 277 was intended for the animal control center, which now I think it's going to be about 100,000 total between
that's backwards,
part
yeah.
this year and part next
Right.
year. That was already in your budget this year, and so we've reduced what the animal control is going to have spent on it to create the $250,000 for the community center.
Couple more comments. Kind of like Jerry, I changed my preference to go along with the group. I originally wanted to go with option number 2 with the community center, which would have allowed us to use the building as it stands right now, use the $400,000 grant to finish out that building. Had we chosen that, we wouldn't have an additional need to move forward. Certainly, I heard a lot of conversation that night that we'll go after grants, we'll work hard, and I would like to see us stay on that path, because that kind of thing, changed my decision. And I could have just stayed with option number 2, and it still would have passed with 3 votes, I'm sure. But I did go along with that. I've got a couple comments on there, and I've said all along that I definitely have a problem with anything the YMCA is going to do that's going to compete with local business. And I've heard the explanations and I've asked the questions, but I'm not totally convinced that this is not going to impact other businesses. So I have a problem with that.
Just while you're on that point, the thing that struck me was the price point that came out, and I compared it. It's more expensive than the gyms, I think. I mean, the weightlifting is the real issue. And
right.
What they're proposing is their fee schedule is more expensive than the existing businesses. And that, to me, that was really the most important thing to clarify.
Gotcha.
And also want to add to that, whenever I voted for it that night, and one of the biggest game changers for me was whenever I looked and seen all the things that YMCA was going to do, youth-oriented. I know that YMCA has fitness equipment just like the area businesses, but the YMCA also does many more things youth-oriented that aren't necessarily done right now, and I believe the 2 can coexist. And that was the reason I voted that night for that.
He's like rolling on. But another reason I would support it is just it makes our community a more attractive place to move to. I think it's going to help attract more people to buy houses, build businesses, shop here. Hey, they got a community center. I know it's not a game changer, but it's it's like adding a boat ramp. It makes the place a little bit nicer. Maybe we can increase our tax base and get more business in.
I agree with that. It's just, can we afford it? We're taking $250,000 out of 1 cent sales tax, and we've got, we're told that every building the county owns with the exception of 2 has leaking roofs. I'd like to see us focus on, let's fix the problems we have before we start throwing this money into this. Also, there's a line in here that says if the county requires opening sooner, then county will reimburse the YMCA for any deficit in operating reserves. I know it's as simple as us not requiring them to open sooner, but I think, we certainly need to be in agreement that we don't need to be reimbursing the YMCA.
Well, that's what it's for, is if you all of a sudden you guys say, hey, we want you to open up in next month, you can say, well, here's what it's going to cost you, because we're not there yet.
They're not going to open at all unless they can get 350 paid memberships, right?
Exactly.
And they're not going to open at all until April of 2014.
That's right. I think our vote would have been different had we known about the 250,000 going forward. And also, giving up that position that I had, we're just going forward buying $1 million to build a fire station that we wouldn't have had to build.
Mr. Chairman.
If we'd have kept what we had.
Go ahead, Howard.
Thank you. Let me just enlarge the screen, so I'll start by saying I'm disappointed in what's come forward. And I understand where the commissioners to my far left, what they're saying as far as what I thought occurred at the meeting that we decided to move forward, that it was going to be this tight belt moving forward. We also, I thought at least, and I'm totally mistaken, is I expected a contract to be coming to us. What we received were bullet points. And this item asks us to basically, by approving, if we approve this item, we're saying all those bullet points, we're basically saying a part of the incorporation into this contract that's coming forward. And there are some real points like you've already brought out. Some of them, if I can go in there and pull out a few more.
Maybe the $6,000.
Yeah, that was really an irritant. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, to come to this point, and I know that some people are saying, well, this is a wish list by the YMCA. Well, you know, it's sort of like when you go into a store and a car store, and they give you this high number, and then they can actually come down a couple of $1,000s. Well, why didn't you give me that price to begin with? I expected there to be a little more tightness to the request of the Y, or its contract, which I was expecting to come forward. The $6,000 to do a feasibility study at this point in time would be a study that I would have expected to have already taken place by the Y. If they were interested in coming to Wakulla County and they needed a feasibility study, then I would have expected them to have done it by now.
We're gonna pay, Mr. Green, we pay half of that.
Or you guys, the purpose of this is to, if you don't like something there, take it out. That's the purpose. That's the reason we bought the term sheet for it. So we're not doing this after we've drafted up $10,000 on a contract.
To me, this requires a workshop, though.
How about let's just taking it all out and starting over? I mean,
I'd like to see this thing tabled and either workshopped or brought back with enough. I don't know how many of you came in here prepared to write a contract.
Well, you're not
You're not writing a contract.
I understand we're not writing a legal contract, but
You will be bringing back a contract?
Yes, you'll have another vote on this.
Up or down vote?
But these points, the way I understand this item written, if we approve it, we're saying we're good with these points that are in here.
We're going
What
to bring you
sense does
back,
that make?
we're going to bring you back a contract with these general terms. You will have an opportunity to review that contract, make changes to that contract, and vote on it again.
I'm not gonna vote for it tonight, any way it goes, so.
I think
whatever.
this needs to come back. I think it needs to be tabled. I think this is not what the board expected.
If they're not gonna open till April 2014, that gives us time to revisit this.
Well,
I mean,
I'm sorry for interrupting, I just want to say, that's another disappointment here.
Yes,
To have
I
that
agree with
building
you.
sit empty for another year, I don't like that. And
I'd say regarding the $6,000, they mentioned pre-selling memberships. I'm going to vote against it, but if it does move forward, I'd suggest that out of those pre-sale memberships, we have them sell them to find out if there's enough interest, and then pay for the feasibility study out of that. That way, you know, if they fail to gain enough members that are willing to pay for this thing, we haven't spent another $3,000.
Three people that aren't gonna vote for it, so.
I didn't say I'm not, I'm saying I want this community center open. I don't want it open on the terms of these bullet points.
Agree.
I want recreation
I agree with that.
I want, ball fields, soccer fields, softball fields, baseball, football. I'm not especially interested in the community center, but.
Is there any specific bullet point you wanted to strike? Because they're gonna be
Yeah.
bringing.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta know, we need to know right now what you want and what you don't want.
Okay.
We can bring it back.
Well, I was,
$1,000?
Because
that's
we've
a
already,
little further,
realize
but
we've
that-
already been over this with each one of y'all, and we've talked to the YMCA, so
Yeah, but-
we need to know what that is, what those are.
but to clarify, this has been gone over with all of us, but we didn't get this material, and especially the revised material, until when? The very end of last week.
Again, these are,
You got it Wednesday afternoon, and here's, the only thing that changed on there was that was in the bullet pointed there. All we're saying, guys, just please, tell us what you want, and we'll put it in here. But tell us what to take out, and we'll take it out. All we did is try to structure the best thing we could. There was no sense in spending $10,000 on a contract and then coming back and having the same problem. What we want to do is get the terms stricken out, so then we can come back and get a
I
contract.
read these terms, is there?
Yeah, just please tell me
One of the
what you
terms
want.
That's a no-go that's in these terms, or is this good enough for you
Right.
to proceed with the contract, that then we can hit it?
I just got to know.
Like the contract we have with the attorney.
We can take out the 6 months, not a problem. The $6,000, not a problem. What else we got?
So we're gonna take out the early, if we want it open early, we gotta pay the cost, is that what you're saying?
If you want to take that out, we can take that out, but then it's the same difference, so.
Okay.
What do you mean by the same difference?
Well, I mean, if we take it out and we want it open early, we gotta pay to open it earlier. The YMCA's not gonna open up if they don't have the memberships. We're asking them to go and start opening as a loss.
Well, I think I expected, and I don't know what other people on this board expected, but I expected the board, at the conclusion of the last time we addressed this, I expected the Y to come in and whatever we had to work with, right? We're going to work with it, and we're going to make it work. And if it only means one employee, or a half of an employee, or 2 employees, or whatever that number is, that they can start off and start doing programs in our Y, that's what I expected. Not that we have to go full
If that's what y'all want to do, just say it, and that's what we'll do. That's exactly, all we're doing is bringing you an option here that says, if you want to open it and we want to do it right, here's what you do. But if you don't, if you want to just open up one building there, we'll work with the Y, and they can have one program and one employee, and that's what they can do. Now, are you giving it a fair shake? Nah. But if that's what y'all want to do, that's fine with us. All we're trying to do is what made the most sense. And if you guys don't want to spend that money, that's fine. It's just, we've been around and around. I want somebody to say, here's the terms of the contract, here's what we're going to do. We've already elected, we've went through the RFP process with the YMCA some years ago. We're way down the line now. We're building a building based on this, and now we want to change the ballgame again.
The ballgame, David, with all due respect, and I know you folks have worked real hard on it, the ballgame changed. I went along with it because I kept hearing it was going to be going forward with grants, so whatever, and I won't do that again. But the bottom line is, turn around and 30 minutes later, we already got...
Y'all don't have to, that's what I understand. You don't have to approve that 250. You can say, no, we're going to operate... From
my standpoint, you take the 250 out.
But here's what the problem is. The YMCA more likely going to say, thanks, but no thanks.
That's fine with me.
Now we're back to square one.
That's fine with me. And now there's 4 other people.
I understand, but there's 4 other people now. So that's the choices that we've got. If you want to proceed, I'll talk to the YMCA and say, hey, well, y'all operated out of that one building, and here's when we'll get it for you, and now to see what we can do.
I don't think the loss of the Y is a terrible, it's not the end of the world. There's a lot of things we can do.
Must be used in our mind like there's a crowd full of people out there that do support it.
Oh, and there are.
There's a lot of people that support it.
Absolutely.
And
I support the Y. I'll go ahead and say, I support the YMCA and moving forward with having the YMCA.
Jerry, I agree with you. The 250 is come out of the, I would say out of the blue, but we're taking money that we're going to spend on the dog pound 2 years from now, and then spend it on improving community. I get your point. I really do. We weren't supposed to be spending money, grant money. Like David said, I guess we could run something with what we got right now.
Guys, we got a $1.4 million investment in 2 buildings and land. We've got $400,000 we're spending on a grant that we're responsible for to go towards a community center.
I appreciate that.
And realize we've got almost $2 million sunk into this thing as of right now.
But you don't throw, it's like a swimming pool. You don't just keep throwing bad money after bad money. We can still go back to the fire engine.
You do that, and that's going to cost us $400,000.
We voted to move forward with the community center and utilize the grant. If we
That's right. That's what I mean. We're way down this road.
Okay, I'll
That same 250 is going to be spent on the dog pound if it's not spent on this.
Well, it's going to be spent on something. We set it down there to be able to use in public facilities next year. That was the whole purpose. So, but if y'all guys don't want to do it, that's fine. We'll do this thing. If the YMCA says, nah, we're not going to play, I'll bring it back to you guys and we'll see what we can do.
We got a motion and a second on the floor. Either one of y'all change your minds?
Well,
Let's let citizens talk, okay?
that'd be good.
Larry?
Gentlemen, Robert Sopchoppy. First of all, I wish Mr. Mayor to get closer to his microphone. It's hard for us old guys to hear you.
Sorry about that.
When you talk. I had a card in under the code enforcement conversation you had previously, but it was forgotten. So anyway, my conversation really extends into this, so that's fine. I'd have picked it up and says to be heard if necessary anyway. The community center, when that was discussed, I think it was 2 meetings ago, it was stated that there was nobody against that, because nobody came to this podium. I was present at that meeting. I didn't come to the podium because I could see that it was going to pass, and it was exercising futility to debate it. I was wasting my time and yours. my point here is that simply because nobody comes here, everybody in this county out there that's not here is not necessarily for the project that you have going for you.
I agree.
That's pretty much all I was going to say on the community center, except for it's a grant, and my observation over a long time, a lot of years, grants always come with strings attached, and I just shouldn't see this county going about its merry way with what we can afford to do, because we always have to do it all on our own eventually. On the code enforcement, I was going to say pretty much what Mr. Taylor said, that we had some selective enforcement, or you guys set a precedence at the time, or a policy which was out of line with the precedence and the policy that you had in place, and I realize that that all feels good to give our money away, but still, that is $22,000 and some odd that we could have to spend on what we need to spend on if you guys have seen fit to enforce the code. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Hillier?
Y'all are glad to see that there's no mob here tonight, so you don't have to hear a lot of people talk. But I would like to just say this is kind of a report from the advisory board that you people appointed. We've met 7 times since that appointment, and we always have had a majority of members present. So anything that came out of those meetings is legit. In all of our meetings, we've always been completely supportive of the YMCA as the primary program provider. There's been no question in our mind, and we have expressed that to the YMCA, to the county administrator when he's been present, and also to the press when they've been present. And now we come to the point of the not the contract, but the bullets that have been presented to you tonight, and we have not had a chance to discuss those. Unfortunately, those were put together after our last meeting, and so the 5 people on the advisory committee have not had that opportunity to discuss it among ourselves. And of course, the sunshine laws prevented me from discussing it outside of those meetings. While we are totally supportive of the YMCA, and I don't think there would be any change in that, because frankly, they're the only provider, and they are the best in our nation at doing these kinds of things. However, I do think there are some points in the bullets that need to be discussed. And all that I'm asking for is a chance for the advisory board, if we are to function as you appointed us, to have that opportunity to discuss them. I've talked personally to Mr. Purvis from the YMCA, and he has addressed my questions quite properly, but even with that, there are still concerns that I personally have. I am not speaking for our board, because we have not discussed it. I am concerned about the feasibility study, and I will agree with whomever it was that stated that I'm very surprised to see that in the YMCA's items. And I agree that that should have been done a long, long time ago. It's never been brought up in any of our meetings with the YMCA. And it was quite a surprise and a little bit of a shock. Other than that, I think most of the things can be worked out. I'm a little bit disappointed in the April 1st starting date.
It's always been my impression from discussions with the YMCA that they would start with just after-school programs for kids. I did not know that we had to have the full presentation on the first day that this facility opened.
Thank you, sir. I think Miss Arts is patiently waiting. Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Lynn Art, 6 Frank Jones Road, Medart. I'm glad to see us moving forward with toward a contract with the YMCA. I think some of the comments I've heard are consistent with my own impression that this is kind of 2 agenda items in one, and my comments are focused mainly on the why. I have looked over these terms. I wish the fees, the annual fees, were lower, and I was disappointed about the Y needing 350 memberships to start. And let me just be clear, I fully support the Y, and they know what they need to be successful, so I defer to them. But I think maybe the 350 memberships in advance is to be fully operational, and what I was hoping to see was the YMCA start off with some more limited programming on perhaps a fee-for-program basis, which 532 of 613 people surveyed said they would be willing to pay. So, for example, what I would like to see coming from the Y would be within 1 month of the completion of the construction and renovation, for example, that the Y would start to offer limited after-school programs for youth for one of 2 fees. One, a higher fee for non-Y members, and a lower or no fee for YMCA members. And they could do the same thing with an evening activity for more adults, such as Zumba, that could be offered again at a slightly higher charge for non-members and a lower one for members, which would encourage people to start signing up for the memberships. And then maybe by October, late October, they could start to collaborate with some of our other local groups, and we could have a Halloween party there for children, for youth safety, and maybe a dance for teens, a costume ball or whatever. And I think if the Y would start partnering with Scouts, and maybe let the Scouts start meeting there, that then the Scouts might take on a project, building the horseshoe pits or setting up a tetherball court or something like that. And the Y also could offer maybe a slightly reduced family rate for Scouts during a promotional month when the Scouts start meeting there. So there are creative ways, I think, that the Y could roll this out that would help to build up the memberships. I also would not spend money on a feasibility study. I'd rather see that money go into making this venture successful. And then the budget amendment, that was news to me. I'm not sure that the Y, I would need to hear from the Y whether they need that. You know, if we can get it started without any additional funds, then let's do that.
Thank you. All right, let's get the Y man up here.
Yep.
Ask the
Right.
question. He's not the enemy. Thank you, Jerry. Do I need to fill out a card? No. I need to fill out the bathroom.
Ralph, just want to ask you on the level at which the fees were set, at least in this program that we got, did that address your concerns with the competition with the private gyms? That they were higher?
As far as the folks that I spoke to that work in those industries, it did not. And, not me making that determination, they still see it as going to be an unfair advantage in the marketplace. Maybe that can be eliminated. Maybe we can get those folks together and we can figure out. I know we were told that there's some items that we can pull out. Ms. Arch mentioned Zumba. We've got a big Zumba program here in the county. Maybe we can pick some of these things out, and I know it may drive up cost in other areas, but I think we need to figure that out and make sure that we're not going to impact those folks that are already here. They're paying taxes, they've been serving our community with those services, and I just don't want to drive them out of business because of this.
Did you get any reason of how they viewed that as anti them if the WISE fees are higher?
Well, I think the main thing is, yes, if someone is going to just the gym and that's all they're going to do, then it's going to be higher to go to the Y. But I don't know how this will work if there's going to be ad hoc prices for the different services. If someone is paying for multiple things, let's say the Y is going to offer gymnastics and they're paying to take their kids to gymnastics. The Y is going to offer Zumba and they're paying to take their wife is going to a different gym with Zumba, and the husband has a membership for a weightlifting. By the time you lump all those things together, it may very well be cheaper for a family membership at the Y instead of paying those individual aspects. So, if you look at just one item, yep, the Y is going to be more expensive. If you look at multiple things, they may be cheaper, and so we may create that unfair advantage.
We give Mr. Ray a chance to maybe respond to some of the things he's heard.
Are there any specific questions from anyone that I can respond to it first? Okay.
Well,
Do you need the $250,000 to get started in Wakulla, or is that the best case scenario?
My understanding of the $250,000 in conversation with Mr. Edwards is that that's geared for much more than just what the YMCA needs in terms of build out of that facility. That includes stuff like sidewalks and landscaping and a few other essentials that are required by code. I don't know the amounts of that because that $250,000 is not a YMCA number. What we're looking at is that to build the shell, if I understand this, correct me if I'm wrong, David, to build the shell of the building that you all receive grant funding for is approximately $300,000 after you take out the design fees and all of that. $300,000 buys you a shell, period. And what that $250,000 includes a lot of would be flooring and striping and basketball goals so that you can actually use the building as a basketball gym.
Well, the $250,000 includes about $50,000 worth of site improvements. We've got to move a transformer. We were hoping to save enough money out of the construction of the building not to have to not so we could pull it out of that, but we just couldn't get the $300,000 threshold. We couldn't get the building cheap enough to do it. So we shaved everything off of it. So we had to have some site work dollars. The main crux of $100,000 of that is to go into the gym and put a floor and put an HVAC system in, okay? The other $100,000 is to go in and renovate the west building so that we can utilize that building to fit the Y. Like I said, if you guys don't want to do that, that's fine. We'll have a shell of a building sitting there. We'll leave the west building alone as it is, and the Y, if they choose to come in here, they can work on out of the east building.
So just to answer that question, that $250,000 was not put in as a requirement by the Y.
Right.
What David said, if we decided not to go ahead, like Jerry wants us to, no offense, Jerry, is working out of that east building really an option?
No.
Okay, that's the answer to the question.
Part of it, and someone has mentioned earlier about running after-school programs, the east building where the sheriff's department currently resides with their offices doesn't require a lot of renovation. It has great classrooms. The church built it as a classroom space. So if we were to try to offer after-school programs there, it makes perfect sense to be able to use those offices and convert them back into classroom space. However, to run after-school programs, we need the sheriff's department to not be in the building. And my understanding is they would not be out of that building until sometime after the 1st of January. So part of the date of pushing this back, and I've heard a couple of people comment on it, is we cannot physically run after-school programs in a building that's already occupied. So we have to wait until they move out and then go in and make whatever transitional changes we need in order to start offering after-school programs. So that's the number one reason that the date was pushed back.
And I understand you're not here as a business trying to open up a branch office of Walmart. You're trying to help.
Well, I would like to address the concerns that seem to be coming from the community, if you don't mind, sir. YMCA's are in thousands of communities. We have been responsible participants in community efforts for over 160 years around the world. It's not ever been our intention to drive anyone out of business. Our entire country is built on services provided by nonprofits such as the YMCA. Someone mentioned Boy Scouts earlier. Boy Scouts, 4-H clubs. These nonprofit agencies serve the greater good of the community. It's not the first time that in my wide career I have heard the same questions that Mr. Moore and Mr. Thomas raised around the competition of a nonprofit entity and a for-profit entity in one community. Typically, YMCA's receive tax challenges on those scores in many cities. What we generally are able to offer, and is support of the YMCA, is that, and this speaks to someone's concerns about their pricing structure, YMCA's work diligently to raise support within the community and to demonstrate the impact that our programs can have in the lives of young people and families. We raise funds for that. We actually will work with the community to raise funds for financial assistance so that we never turn anyone away for an inability to pay. When the YMCA was formed over 160 years ago, that was the primary ethos. We will not turn anyone away for an inability to pay. So we raise funds to help offset the cost of that scholarship assistance. Generally speaking, and I do not have the case records, but generally speaking, YMCAs are able to demonstrate that the amount of scholarship assistance that they provide within a community exceeds the amount of tax paid by the for-profit entities. It's not a competition around who has the best weightlifting equipment. It really is about community impact. The YMCA is here willing to serve the residents of Wakulla County and to make the best of that. It's your all's choice as to how you spend your money. It's my choice as to how the YMCA spends its money. We cannot come into a venture to lose money. I would agree that probably with some of the comments by some on the commission, you all are not in the business of losing money either. So I don't offer anything other than to say we cannot offer our programs on a one-off basis with limited resources and try to make a go of it. Do I believe the YMCA has merit and value for Wakulla County and the kids in this county? Yes, sir. Can we do it so that it's a revenue neutral proposition? I believe we can. The question about the 350 memberships, without some level of support from the county, I have to have a number that says we can start at this point and we think we can make a go of it. And so the 350 memberships is that point in terms of starting the operation. Questions about the feasibility study. I was not here with the YMCA. I've been a little less than 6 months. I was not here when we started talking with Wakulla County about this proposition. As we have looked at a couple of situations within our organization, I've convinced my board that we don't proceed on anything without a feasibility study. It would, when I talked to Mr. Edwards about sharing the cost with you all, it struck me that $2,000 or $3,000 for 50% of a feasibility study in advance of spending upwards of $250,000 or more would make sense. I have to go back and ask for approval of all of this from my board as well.
What you're saying, this feasibility study may say, Jerry, Richard, we can't, it won't work.
And I will not, that is correct.
Center, even though you had a 3-2 or 4-1 vote to do it.
We will not move forward without a positive result on the feasibility study. Because at the end of the day, while we would like to offer many programs, we have to make it a model that works financially for us. We cannot come to Wakulla County and lose $50,000 or $100,000 a year.
And we don't want to blow $250 on a gym if we don't have somebody there operating, I guess. David, we wouldn't proceed with spending any money, obviously.
The only thing we'd have to spend money on is the little bit of site work that we've got to do to come into compliance with the building we're at now.
I think we've determined that the best way to have programs there for youth is to have the Y run it.
Right, and we haven't, you're exactly right. The 200,000 of the 250 would not be spent until this feasibility study came back.
And that same 250,000, if it's not spent here, that same 250,000 is slotted to be spent next year for animal control, correct?
Well, or whatever you guys, it's in public facilities.
So we can either spend it,
Parked at the animal.
That's right, it's parked. That's right, it's parked in animal control.
all right.
That's not saying we could.
But we do have 50,000 of that. We've got a stormwater pond that was never built, that we've got to finish building. We've got to move the electrical service, which is, the copper on it alone is or the expense of that is 16,000 just in wiring, so.
If we proceed with this, could you have the committee that was formed by the board review these bullet
Sure.
points and then review whatever draft contract you came before it even came back to us?
Well, no, I'd like you guys to review you get back with me, everybody, and we'll give it to them, and go through every one of those bullet points. No, I don't want to draft a contract until I have all the business points down, and then we give the contract to our attorney. That way, we don't keep going back and
They're gonna wanna
redrafting a contract.
We're all gonna wanna look at the contract.
Well, and you will look at the contract after it's drafted, but I want the business, you always, in any contract, you get your business points down, and then you draft the contract, not draft the contract and then work on your business.
And that's why I think it's so important that we, as a board, get the feedback from the committee that has been working with this process all through. I mean, they're the most knowledgeable, they're our experts on this.
Well, that's why I said, consult with them before proceeding, let them look at the bullet points too.
Just for the standpoint of the Y, I don't object to the Y coming in. I welcome you. It would be great to have a Y. I'm just going to watch out for the county's money really bad, and I don't want to spend any county money on your Y.
And Mr. Moore, I appreciate your sentiment, and thank you for the endorsement, and my pledge to you is I'm going to watch over the YMCA money very carefully, and we're going to make sure we don't lose any.
Also, to add this, 3 of the 5 committee members have already responded back to us on these points. So, and we've incorporated some of those changes in here, so it's not like the committee has not seen that. So, I'm not saying we got to press forward now, I'm just saying, but it's critical before the next meeting, if you've got an issue and you want to change or add a bullet point, all you got to do is say, we're going to change the term sheet, and that's what it is. Just let me know what those are and we'll incorporate them.
How fast does this need to move forward? Because we need, like, say the next meeting under discussion items, while we're all here in a public forum, we could ask you questions like, why is the county receiving 25% of the rental fees instead of 50%? And I'm sure you'd have an explanation for whatever reason.
Well, the problem is things get time sensitive. As you know, we're moving forward. We're issuing the RFP for the building for the sheriff's department.
Right.
Okay. So if we don't move, that's progressing as well. Now, can we wait a month? Yes, we can. But we need to make a decision here shortly as to what we're going to do. But understand, we're going to be advancing way down the road come a month from now. We're going to already have the RFP out for the sheriff's department, so we're going to be moving down the road there. So if we didn't do this and we're going back up on the community center, we'll pull the RFP for the sheriff's
I
department.
just assume personally have them proceed, and then we can get our hack at the contract when it's presented.
I'm in favor of proceeding.
Howard, are you in favor of proceeding?
I am. This was, the community center was my pick as a priority for a past board. We've got a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money invested in this. I want to see this opened, but I don't want to see it as a one-sided issue, which sort of felt like to me as I was reading these bullet points. And I think that, just as the Y looks out for its business interests, the county has to be looking out for its business interests. But I think, though, moving forward now, at least okaying to go ahead and start giving direction to formulate a contract that, and let me make sure I'm correct, that no matter what happens, are we still building the shells of that? Okay, so that grant money is not going to be lost. And we have time between now and before this contract comes back to us to be giving our input into the administration, discussing this amongst ourselves under discussion items, and clearing up as much as we can, and getting the input from our own committee as that committee as a whole can give us, I think is important. And then we can make the final decision. But I don't think this is the time to stop. I think we have to move ahead.
David, you can kind of tell if there's any real point of contention that one commissioner shares and other ones don't.
Right, and I can take care of that, and also
Now, don't
understand.
take Jerry, when Jerry says cross everything out and
Yeah.
don't have a contract, don't take that as constructive.
That's right, and realize, I mean, I think Ray can tell you, we took up for the county very well in our negotiation. We batted this thing back a bunch, so there was stuff he wanted and we couldn't live with, and the same thing. But you're right, Dr. Kessler, we'll be glad to get the terms to the committee and ask them to get on it, because we need to go ahead and move forward with it. But after they approve that, what I'd like to be able to do is, if the committee says, yeah, we're good with these terms, and you guys, or here's the adjustment, we got to have a vote that says, here's the terms of the contract. Once I get you guys back, here's the terms that we're going to vote on, and you have to agree with that so we can move forward with the
We got a
contract.
motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Ralph.
I certainly can't warm up to the idea of the 250,000. I just think that, we need to be a little more careful. We voted 5-0 to move forward with the community center. So we show unity that we're for a community center. But we've also got to look out at the financial well-being, and we've got to look at how that money could be spent in other areas where we've had needs, and we've had needs for years. So I think we've got to be careful. There seems to be a feeling today that we have a big rush. Here's what I'd like to see. We've got, I think, 5 months left before we could potentially lose this grant money, and I'm sure that's on track, and we're gonna get that grant money. But I would like to see us, let's swallow that first. That's a big accomplishment when we move forward and provided them a method of getting that grant money. Why can't we move forward? Let's get this shell built. Let's make sure we're going to be able to deliver this grant money, because if we go into this contract and for some reason we fumble the grant money and we've got this contract on top of it, shame on us. I don't see the big rush. I see we are moving forward. Let's keep moving forward, but let's get past the grant first. Let's cash that check and make sure that we've gotten past that hurdle, and now let's figure out how to finish this building out.
I understand concerns. There is a feasibility study, however, that's going to come out of this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll go ahead and say the reason that I'm in favor of going ahead and finishing out the areas that need to be finished out. That way, whenever YMCA opens, it can open with a full program. And if it opens with a full program, it's going to be that much more chance of it succeeding. And I want the YMCA to succeed. I believe it'll be an asset for the youth of our county. I believe it's the best method to be able to provide this. I believe that YMCA can coexist with our present fitness centers that we have that deal mainly and just strictly fitness area for adults. This is something that's going to do a broad string for the youth of our county. And the same amount of money, the reason I keep referring back to it, the same 250,000 that's been slotted, it's just being moved from one line item to another. The same amount of money is going to be spent, so we can either let it sit over there and just be waiting to be spent on animal control, or we can use that same amount of money to finish this out and provide something useful for the youth of our county.
All right, can we get a consensus of vote?
What's the motion on the floor?
I'm going to withdraw my second.
Okay. The motion on the floor now is to approve the terms between the county and the YCA for the community center, and to approve the budget amendment reallocating $250,000 from Winston sales tax. There is no second.
I just want to be clear that if we move ahead, it does not mean we're accepting all of these bullet points.
How about we approve the proposed terms in substantial form and authorize staff to begin drafting a contract, as well as coordinating with the Community Center Advisory Board on the substantive terms of the contract, and approve the budget amendment reallocating $250,000 from the 1-cent sales tax public facility infrastructure fund for the community center.
I amend my motion to that.
I second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All against?
I'm going to stay with the people who brought me to the party. I'm going to vote against it
All right,
now.
motion passes 3-2. Next item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Let's get past that.
This one's kind of complicated, isn't it?
Yeah,
We
this
have to
is-
maybe do citizen citizens to be heard.
That's right, citizens be heard.
You're right.
That's
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kessler.
Let me take about 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's take a bathroom break, then we'll go to citizens be heard.
Well, I'm gonna be dashed fine just to have Haskins today. I'm gonna be dashed fine just to have Haskins.
Gotta love it. Wednesday's good. Wednesday's good.
All right, we're gonna re-adjourn. Larry, you're next. You wanna wait? Thank you, sir. Ron Pysek.
I hope the computer hadn't gone down.
Ron Pyseki, 137 Royster. I'm glad you guys took a little break because that was getting a little heated here for a while. And what I want to talk about is not controversial at all. It's called code enforcement.
Oh.
And I'm here as chairman of the Code Enforcement Board. Probably been chaired for, I've been on the board for about 7 years, chairman for at least 5. During those years, and since Jamie's been there, we have, through fines and board decision, approved and have had registered liens on non-homesteaded property, and write the figures down, $564,255. Those are outstanding liens. In other words, your money, your reserve in the bank. That's non-homesteaded. Homesteaded property, you can add another $163,230 to it. We've also, during this whole period of time, of all the liens, these plus, we've only had $52,000 worth of liens that have been paid. Some of the others have been settled through foreclosure. And before I run out of time, I'll make one comment before that. The Code Enforcement Board is recommending to you guys, we would like to sit down with you in a joint workshop. Both boards sit down together for a 2-hour workshop and have everybody get briefed on the whole code enforcement process, what we go through, how we make our decisions, how the decisions are then gone through all the legal stuff, and it ends up in foreclosures in some cases. We meet on Wednesday. I invite Wednesday 5:30, we set up where you're sitting. Only there'll be more of us, because we have 7. Usually have 7 in attendance. Coming from the Code Enforcement Office and with the Attorney's Office, we're going to propose to us to approve and recommend to this board additional foreclosures on 10 properties worth roughly $160,000 in existing liens. Okay? The county would go through all the legal process, then you own the property. That seems like the only way that we're going to get the money. Get the county to own them, clean them up, dispose of them. People aren't paying them. Last board meeting, you forgave a property in Sop Chopping. He's not here, so I'll talk about him. David Edwards, I think, was on the city commission, Sop Chopping. I know Richard was. The city came to Wakulla County, said, we try to clean the property up. We don't have authority to do it. We'll sign an interlocal agreement with Wakulla County. Would you take over code enforcement? The first case that was brought under that was the clerk of Sop Chopping coming to us with the case. Last meeting, you forgave. The board, Code Enforcement Board, reviewed the case again, came back with a 5-0 vote to reduce 2,000, not the 24. You ignored what we recommended and forgave the whole amount. What may not have been clear is that in addition to that, we heard another item, the adjoining parcel of land
sorry.
Can I just have 1 minute to finish this? I think it's
Not to be
important.
fair to Mr. Taylor and
Well-
Mr. Chuck Cass and not everybody else, no.
What-
Please.
Okay, I'll try to get through it in 1 minute. The adjoining parcel of land had been heard before by the code board. We gave dates to be cleaned up. Property wasn't cleaned up. Fines started accumulating. We hadn't, at that point, and still have not, imposed a lien on that second parcel of property. We got a request through Jamie to waive fines on both parcels of property. The one we sent to you, the second one, since the lien hadn't been filed yet, that had built up to well over $34,000. The code board looked at the situation and said we would recommend that we'll reduce the lien amount down to $5,000. So we will be looking Wednesday to impose a lien on the second parcel of property for $5,000. Now, I plead with you come Wednesday to our board, because right now, I'm hard pressed to try to convince everybody to stay on the board.
I have a question.
Well, what we could do, and I'm willing to stay, it's going to be brought up during discussion items. If you want, if I'm allowed to, we can discuss it during that period of time, or I'd be happy to answer now, however.
I have a quick question. Same person?
Yep.
Still dead, right?
Yeah, he's still dead. The only thing about it, now it's the daughter's responsibility to clean it up. And you're saying she is not cleaning it up?
Oh, both properties are cleaned up.
Those properties are completely clean.
Okay,
All right.
Mr. Taylor? Thank you, Ron.
They're clean.
We're gonna talk about that. We need some clear cut.
I am toting this box for a reason. And I couldn't, where's it from? I couldn't see it, sorry. Engaged citizenry, I'd like to speak to it, citizens to be heard. Number one, I will tell you, the YMCA and what they do is not a zero-sum game. I think you had a situation, I think you solved it. I congratulate you, Mr. Administrator. Look down the Parkway, start at the Capitol and go east. And see all the Zumbas and the this and the that's and the Y's right in the middle of it. I'm here because of citizen oversight. I have a box here relative to the TDC. I have 4 boxes. This represents one of 4 boxes that I have. Because of citizen action on the TDC, this county probably saved $100,000. I have seen an awful lot, probably 4 or 5 boxes on our past administrator that saved this county untold hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you have citizens that serve at no pay only to get slapped in the face. You have, it's government by daddy at the supper table. I just can't breathe. Why I'm up here? You know I'm up here? Because they tore a friend of mine out of a meeting. I sat for months in the back, just watching, till they booted out a volunteer fire chief that they didn't even know he was the chief because nobody was informed except Dr. Kessler had enough civic interest to go around to every fire station. That's the reason I'm here today. Public Records, Sup Choppy, started it. We're back after being gone for a few years. I lived 10 years at Shell Point. We're back. It's like, oh, I didn't see it. I couldn't find your place, right? We're back, and bottom line, the Wakulla we left is not the Wakulla we came back to. And according to Mr. Thomas, Mr. Moore, thanks for the jobs, Mr. Moore, we should be okay with no impact fees. Well, I ask you a good Republican question. Are we better off now than we were? I don't know. My friend Mr. Hess talks about your grandpa's grouper ain't what your grandson's groupers are going to be. Shifting baselines. There are people that have come here that didn't know about 25 minutes to Tallahassee. Or I have averaged, good God, during the day, 15 miles an hour from the courthouse to 267. You know, that's one reason we came, because we couldn't turn left in Tallahassee. We came here to our little country place. Well, can't turn left here either. And suicide lanes are exactly that. I'm hopping around because I don't believe in 2 o'clock meetings, so I'm not going to come to one. So there. And I don't think we should have them. As a matter of fact, I think we should have 7 o'clock meetings. But this box represents action by citizens. And here's the deal. We shouldn't have to act. You cannot tell me no member associated with the administration drove north on 319 north of Shadeville, that intersection by the cemetery, and wondered if there was a permit on that sign. That's selective enforcement. The commissioner in my district, before the election, had rumble strips removed from a buddy's house on Ravenkill Road. I was told by that same commissioner to, you know what, up a rope. My current commissioner told me to, you know what, up a rope. It's there for safety, not for selective enforcement. With that, good day. Thank you.
I always wonder about those rumble strips in front of Hughes' house. I want to look into getting rid of those around here when you they're about worn out. It's very annoying when they're in front of your house. Chuck? I was waiting for you to call me. So I got a note, a standing order right here. I'll show it to you.
Yep, it's going to be a standing order until you get back to 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock meetings on your second meeting of the month. And we really want to make sure you understand that a lot of, most of the people that come before you are coming before you because it makes money for them. They have a financial incentive. However, there are a few civic-minded people in the community that come forward simply because they want to be part of the process. And by changing a meeting to 2 o'clock, you've made it expensive and difficult for those civic-minded people to come forward. Now, the people that are still making money are still going to come forward because it puts money in their pocket. But those that are only involved because of their civic participation, you've made it more difficult. And I just think that's incorrect and inappropriate for y'all to do. The meeting should be at 5 o'clock or after, so that it doesn't impact a work day or activity day, whatever you want to call it, so it doesn't break up somebody that's just trying to be civically minded. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Louis, this transportation review process and fees, kind of a convoluted item here that's not simple at all.
I think I can try to make it little bit simple for you. We proposed a resolution based on board direction, which would allow applicants to use county-recognized consultants in lieu of paying for a third-party review of traffic and traffic studies. And these would be applicants for site plans or subdivisions. Staff's concern, as stated in the agenda item, is that consultants hired by applicants would just represent the interests of that applicant and not of the county. Without the county's consultant reviewing the applicant's work, there's no assurance that public roadways are not going to be adversely affected by development. Staff is looking for board direction on this issue. One of the suggestions that we could put forth at the meeting is that perhaps the county could hire the consultant based on a list of qualifications. The applicant for development would pay for the consultant, but they would work for the county and represent the county's interests in lieu of in lieu of paying for a third-party review. Applicants would still have that option for things to remain the same as they are now. They could hire their consultant. We would and pay for the third-party review. At this point, staff's looking for board direction.
Yeah, I think this is better than what we got. I'd like to come back later and raise that threshold up where somebody like Zaxby's doesn't need to perform a traffic study. But that's another issue for another day. And I think this beats the heck out of what we got now. They're going to be, at least they're paying once for a traffic study instead of twice. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I think this is a really bad idea.
All right.
Yep, that's the other side of the coin. I think we really have it where the developer paying the consultant is really going to call the tune. He pays the piper, calls the tune.
The county's going to pay the consultant, though.
Well, that was...
They're going to pay the county here.
That's not as proposed. That's just a suggestion if you wanted to go that route.
As proposed.
Okay, yeah. As suggested is what I agree with. I see problems with as proposed.
Okay.
So we actually are agreeing on this.
Okay, so I was talking to the item.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, as proposed, as what Louis said, I think it'd be better to have the applicant pay the county pays the consultant. That way, the consultant's working for the county.
How do you track the money with that?
I guess Louis would have to go get a quote to do the traffic study, and then say, all right, whatever, Walmart, you owe us $12,000 to get a traffic study done, and then we go order the traffic study and do it. Is that what you're suggesting?
We would have to come up with fees based on the level of the trips generated and the complexity of the study, and yeah, it would be based on that.
How do the fees figure in on the number of trips? That has nothing to do with anything.
Well, it's more of a complicated analysis for, say, a project with 1,000 trips. You have to do more. You actually use computer software. Where a project with 30 trips, you could do without any modeling or anything like that. So it's more work, more complicated.
I asked Louis a lot of questions about this, and I never could get my mind around it, but I think I have. What would be wrong? You've got a traffic consultant. They have certain parameters to work with. We got a straight road. I wrote it. We got just a couple of curves, but everything is a straight road coming down. Pretty much all the studies are going to be the same. You're just going to add a few numbers. If a company wants a curb cut here, if it's on a curve, why couldn't you take your traffic consultant and develop a list of criteria of do nots? Do not get closer than 100 feet for an intersection, or do not get this. There are do nots in their studies that you should have this. You can formulate those numbers, and then the developer's study has to go with those numbers instead of having to pay it twice.
It's not that easy.
Yeah, it's actually pretty complicated.
A lot of art involved in it, and with what Louis is suggesting, they wouldn't pay twice. They would pay once, which now they have to pay twice. So at least Yeah, and I like Louis' suggestion where they pay the county pays the consultant, but at least they're only paying them once.
If I can't have my way, I'll go along with that.
Now, I would like to lower the threshold, for we're the ones requiring the traffic study. There's two different things in traffic. One is a DOT driveway permit, right, that determines if you need a turn lane, this curb cut you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. The other one is concurrency. Concurrency is where we're coming in with this traffic study. I think we need to raise our threshold a bit on concurrency, because right now it's any amount of trips says you gotta have concurrency. Minimal development, 15 or fewer PM peak hours. That means if you got 3,
I agree with you.
you know, it's not a lot of money, I agree, but you still have.
No money for less
It's $160.
$160. But if you have a small development like a Zaxby's, for example, in order for concurrency, you'd have to pay $800 for a traffic study. Now, I know that's not a lot of
Zaxby's,
money.
you would want that. I mean, that's,
I would agree about the turn lane analysis, but the overall concurrency impact on 319.
yeah, it's more of a turn lane, you're right.
Turn lane's totally different than this.
That's right.
DOT's gonna make them do a turn lane
You're
analysis.
not necessarily adding capacity
Exactly.
like a
In
development.
my mind, you're capturing more trips with the Zaxby's.
You're
And I hate
talking
to
about
go back.
turn lane, you're talking about decel. A turn lane or decel lane?
Decel's the right turn lane, which we don't use that language anymore.
Oh.
Left turn lane.
Okay.
You may use it in some cases.
Yeah,
but
Well, that's a
almost
decel lane, yes, yes.
It's a right turn lane, but yeah, DOT will determine if you meet the threshold that's warranted. But anyway, just to move things along,
Just so we don't
better
get,
than what we got now.
just so we don't get tied in with one particular company who has all the business, I made a suggestion that we interview, we have five
Who's gonna do
choices.
that, right?
Yeah, we would, there's a lot of people who are qualified to do this, so we would like to get as many qualified
And you're
as
trying to find the
possible.
best deal for the applicant too. You know what I mean?
That's
That's
my
right.
problem. That's my problem. I
If this
just,
company's twice as expensive as this one, you won't use the twice as expensive one just because they're up.
so every time Joe comes in for a permit, you will go to those 5 and you'll say, will you bid on this? Will you bid on this? What would be wrong with that? That's free enterprise.
Yeah, we could have them bid on it, or just come up with a set.
I'd rather have a bid. I'd
As long as
rather.
it's professional.
You can't,
Not under CCNA, we'd have to have some type of formal bid process each time. Now, it doesn't have to be the full ITB, we could probably make it
Then you
where it
have
could be
a
a quicker
qualified
process.
consultant, a continuing services consultant on board, and then you would have to ITB it every time. You just say, all
Right.
right, Sewell will do this, all right, Preparation, you do this traffic study. Maybe somebody that's more expert in small ones could probably do a little cheaper than a big company with a lot of overhead.
That bothers me if, I'd like to just see, I'd like to see a bid go out and say.
Can't do that.
Can't do that.
Cannot do that with consultant services.
Well, and the developer would always have the option of saying, I'm gonna use my guy, but he would have to pay for us to have somebody review it.
And I think that's,
He wants to do it.
If he wants, that's his option.
and I think that's very critical, that piece where the county is doing at least the hiring for one of those studies, should the developer want his own study. I mean, that's the only way the county gets protected.
Correct. Okay, do we have a motion? It's been so long, I forgot.
No, you did not have a motion.
Somebody like
So,
to make a motion?
Well, we have Louis made the motion, and it sounded very good.
All right. Louis, you make the motion. Howard will say what Louis said.
Well, I guess you're looking for, what I'm getting is you're giving us direction to come back with a process, or the county would hire the consultant to do the study as an option,
And the consultant would pay for that.
and the
This would
consultant
just be paying once and not twice, then, right?
Right, the consultant would be paying the county, but the county would be doing the hiring and then give that fee to the,
The applicant would be paying the county, the county would be paying the consultant.
That's right.
right.
And if the applicant does not want to use our process, he can go ahead and hire his own, but he still has to pay a fee for us to check his traffic study.
If he decides he wants to use me to do a traffic study, which I'm not qualified to do, they can do that, fine, and maybe I'll be dirt cheap, but then they also gotta pay to have
Right.
it work.
Do you do that?
No, I won't do that.
I've got a question for you, since you're.
That's my motion.
Engineer and a builder. Sorry, go ahead.
That's my motion.
Okay, we got a motion, a second?
I want a second to just bring it to vote.
Okay, so we do have a second? Or no?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Question for you. Isn't it customary, if someone's moving forward with a project,
they're probably gonna wanna hire a consultant and figure this stuff out even before they get to the application stage. So, I mean, are we?
No, not really.
Not necessarily.
That's, when
Depending
you're
on the
talking about
site.
a DOT driveway permit, yes, you're right. You usually use your engineer to do your site plan to do your DOT driveway permit. But doing a traffic, which is relatively, I can do those on a spreadsheet, they're relatively easy to do, but a concurrency review for transportation, no, that's more of a special, that's gonna be a separate.
We always did ours later on in the
The
process.
applicant wouldn't want to know that before they move forward with
Not on a
purchasing that
large-
property.
On a large scale project, most of the time. Now, you'll get an idea from your local engineer that says, you know, we have to do X, you can figure on X number of improvements, and you go, okay, well, you make your decision, but normally this doesn't drive the boat of you doing a
Let's
project.
take Walmart, for example. They went ahead and paid for that traffic light and turn lanes and all that stuff, instead of paying to the county for concurrency and having us build it. So, has anyone ever actually paid the money for traffic concurrency? I don't think the county's ever collected a dime for traffic concurrency. I may be complete, no, they haven't, but I wasn't off base. People have had to do improvements, but they probably would have to do them anyway, just for the turn
So,
lane.
no one's ever paid for traffic concurrency?
That I know of.
And we're setting it up right now that they will start paying?
No.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
not at all.
That's why I think the whole study thing, would concur. That's another day. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Oh, come on, Jerry. All right, Bob.
Call my name a lot.
Well, my name's Bob Danzy. I did understand it, and now I understand it less, for sure. If I develop something and I pay you to, and I realize I can't ask the question, I get it, but.
Go ahead.
If I pay you and you hire a guy, and it comes back that, would this include trips for a piece of property? And then it comes back to where there's not enough trips left on 319 for me to do my development. I may disagree with you, with your guy. Then I say, well, I want to hire my second opinion, and I'll pay for it. Are you going to consider that? Because it obviously works the other way, to where, first of all, I can hire my guy, and I got to pay you to pay for your consultant to see if you agree with my guy. So, is there, in essence, an appeal? I hope that there is, and that's why I'm bringing that up, that has to work both ways, because if you get to pick them, and there's let's just say that there's certain people that are in charge of the county that don't want development, and then they go and pick people that are not gonna be very friendly with their reports. I mean, that can happen, so you want to be really careful. I don't want the chicken watching the hen house here. I don't think it would be that way now. I really do appreciate and admire our staff, but things change.
I guess what Bob is saying, yes, theoretically could happen. Yes, could it theoretically happen right now? If somebody did a traffic study and they paid for this review, and whoever reviewed it came back and says, I don't agree with their decisions, I don't know if that's ever happened, whose word would we take?
You're gonna have to negotiate.
It goes on quite a bit, actually, and I expect that with this new process, I fully expect somebody's not gonna like what the consultant comes back with, so they are gonna hire their own consultant, so I think we would offer that option if they paid for their consultant to review.
So
That's just the
what
nature
you're
of our
saying
work.
is, at minimal, it's no worse than it is right now,
Yeah,
at minimal. But if there is no conflict, then
it's better.
half the cost.
Well, I wouldn't say half the cost. It's always more
I'll pay for it
expensive.
once.
It's always more expensive to prepare the review than it is to review the work, so, I mean, to hire your own consultant, it always costs more, so it's not a double review, you're actually paying less to review the work.
Make it better make it more friendly for a person to come here, and if a person owns their land, you know.
Trying to do that without having people walk all over the county either.
I get it, I do. That was the thing that came to my mind, is that I think it should work both ways.
Thank you, sir.
Did we get an answer on how the appeal process would work? I didn't hear that.
The answer I got was that if they wanted to go hire their own consultant and appeal it, yes, they could, and then Louis said there's always a lot of back and forth. I don't know how they would do it, I don't know how attorneys.
Right now you have, it's negotiation between you're experts at that,
Arbitration.
just like it is now.
It's, I had mistakenly thought it was pretty cut and dry engineering. It's not.
There's a lot of...
Assume how many, let's say we're doing, Chuck, just bear with me a second. Let's say I'm doing a Zaxby's. I can assume how many of those Zaxby customers actually live in Wakulla, and I can say it's 98% live in Wakulla. Another traffic consultant will say, well, I think only 70% live in Wakulla, and other percent live in Tallahassee, and therefore you're generating all these new trips on the road. How do you dispute that?
It also boils down to, I think, these people, I got a development here, they're not gonna turn right on 319, they're all gonna turn left.
That's right.
And one consultant say that, and another consultant say, no, they're all gonna turn right, so.
That's how the flowers went through, by the way. Their first time they went through the entrance of 319, all they did was move it over to Blossom. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Chuck, go ahead.
Okay. Actually, you're coming out to the right place, which is unusual for me to agree with you.
Twice, Chuck.
I know, it's getting weird. Basically, you want to have the people making your decisions being paid by the county and not by the developer. Anytime the developer or any business is paying for something, they're gonna get the product that they're paying for. And if they want a favorable traffic study, that's what they would get. Because if you were always giving out unfavorable studies, people wouldn't hire you. So it's really important that the county be paying for these studies. Thank you.
Do biologists do the same thing?
Yes, quite often, when I was doing that, that's the big issue, is that we would, somebody else would pay we would do the same thing you're currently doing, is they would do it and we would review it. But most of the times, there's a lot of what we call biostitutes, is that they write whatever you want.
That's a new word.
Now, another side of this is when I was in the development business, we were in a large way. Now, we worried actually more about access and the ease of access for our customers than we did necessarily chopping off a study. So we wanted to make sure that we had easy access. We realized we did large scale stuff, but we wanted to make sure we had easy access. Now, we didn't like to go past our boundaries, but we wanted to have easy access for and so understand that's the other side of that, but then that was on a larger scale. So on a smaller scale, you gotta watch all those dollars.
But that's right, you have big dollars to work with, and the small guy, see, you talk about Zaxby's, that's a national chain, but really, it's got nothing to do with the national chain. It's the individual who's buying that franchise, and I had the franchise pretty much, but we didn't have a third lane, and I couldn't afford to put in a third lane. So, but you've got the small guy, he's restricted to just how much money he's got available to go into business.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye?
Aye.
All right, Jerry, you're up.
Okay, I think my first one here has to do with naming Alan LaMarche to serve on the Marine Fisheries Gulf Council. It's quite an honor to be able to do that. Alan comes to this council with a complete background in law enforcement, in fisheries, in just about every aspect of being a person who should be on this board. And I just brought this forward to just get a letter of, to get an agenda item, I guess we would call it.
Okay, got it. So Jerry made a motion. Is there a second?
Let's second the motion.
Any more discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Who are the other candidates?
Sir?
Who are the other candidates for this position?
Oh, there's no other candidates I know of in Wakulla County. There may be some somewhere else, but he lives out in Shell Point. He takes kids fishing almost every weekend at no cost. He's just got the best resume that you will ever find for somebody to be on this board. He speaks. I've been with him 3 or 4 different times on speaking to the marine fisheries at Apalachicola, at Quincy, and different places. He's always there speaking on behalf of the group of regulations, the fisheries. He supports all the fishermen. He's just a great candidate, in my opinion.
How does this process work?
We just, this is nothing more than a letter of support. I don't know how it works. It goes up, he will be reviewed with other people, such as himself, who have been recommended.
It's kind of like applying for like Public Service Commission or something like that.
Yeah, there's probably a review board that will review all the people that come forward.
Well,
I'd support him just if he's the only one from Wakulla.
he probably is the only one from Wakulla. I'm not sure about that, but I know that, I think it's our governor that makes recommendations, and he has several recommendations, or whatever number of recommendations they are, and then he passes on the recommendations to the fisheries. I think we need to know who those candidates are, and to really pick the best one, not just that it comes from Wakulla County, but to make an informed decision. We need more information.
I'm going to stay with people from Wakulla County that spend their time here, that spend their efforts here, that support Wakulla County.
Okay, we got a motion, a second, any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-1. Jerry, next item?
My next item, I got a call from the TDC. It seems like after several years, they have their signs available to put up. And they may have put one up, but the county told them that they really needed to not do that, and they needed to get a permit, and in order to get a permit, they needed to pay the fees. And it seems a little bit unusual that the county is, one part of the county is charging the other part of the county fees, but in hindsight, the building department operates on its own, so somebody's got to pay them. It doesn't matter if it's, whoever. So my recommendation is that the county pays the fees for the TDC permits.
These are gateway signs coming into the county, go up into Wakulla or something?
That is correct.
Okay, we got a motion, is there a second?
Let me ask you.
All right, it's to die, we'll have a second. No second?
I'll make a second for discussion. I understand the building department is standalone, has to support itself. Is there any departments that would be able to do a similar thing? Is there anything unique because this is TDC, or,
Nope,
if the library wants to put up a sign,
we'll have to charge the library.
We waive sewer fees for churches all the time, I know that.
Only person that can waive a fee are you five,
okay?
as far as building fees.
This would only pertain to precedent-wise, this would only pertain to our own sub-department agency, right?
That's right. And realize the
I got you, Howard.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so the way I see this very simply is, first of all, I don't think government should be paying for permitting fees. Okay. And TDC is part of the government. But the choice is, do we want to pay it with taxpayers' dollars out of our general fund, or do we want to pay it with bed tax revenue out of TDC? And I'd much rather prefer it not go on the backs of our ad valorem taxpayers and be paid out of the TDC. And I don't think it's a big deal either.
How much money are we talking about here?
I have a question.
It's not much
David,
at all.
you said the board could waive the fees. No.
No, the board can waive the fees, but understand, we gotta stroke a check out of general fund
Okay.
through the building department.
They have to come from somewhere.
That's right. So you can either pull it out of the bed, like Dr. Kessler said, out of the bed tax revenue, or out of the taxpayers.
How much is it?
Money.
It's about $350 a sign, something like that.
Dang, that's...
How big
Four
are the signs?
signs, right?
4 signs,
It'd be
yeah.
less than $2,000 on the
Right,
top
yeah.
end, right?
How big are the signs?
Big, they're like two
God.
telephone poles. and a sign
Yeah,
about
it's
this wide.
outside of the square footage requirement that we've got in our code. And trust me, they came to me and said, can we get these waived? And I can't say that,
Are they
because I
going in the right
cannot
of
do
way?
that.
Are they going
Huh?
to the state right of way?
Yes.
Are these state fees we're gonna be paying for them?
No, they're county building department.
Which they still gotta go Rod's or whoever.
Yeah, and I could not say look the other way, or I couldn't say not do it.
If we get in the same process, any of the other groups that are helping the county, we're going to say, you can help the county, okay, but we're going to charge your tail.
We're charging ourselves for the community center.
It's the
It's state law. I can't break state law.
Oh, I definitely
can't either.
understand that.
What about the,
So this is the argument we need to have 20 miles up the road if you want to change that.
what about Historical Society, for example? Do
Same
they-
thing.
They pay their own fees?
Either that or you guys waive it. Y'all have waived those in the past.
And we have waived, like after a hurricane, we waived.
You've waived, that's right, you have waived after tropical storm.
If it comes to a choice between the TDC paying it and the taxpayers paying it, I'll let the TDC pay it.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry to do that, but I'm,
On your motion,
yeah, I withdraw that.
next item? I think next item, Heather, you got anything?
No.
David?
No.
All right, Ralph, you want to talk about anything?
Yeah, I got a couple things. At the last meeting that I actually attended, I brought up an issue to support Congressman Sutherland's Gulf Fisheries Fairness Act, and I just wanted to give you guys a follow-up. We decided at that meeting that we needed more information. Since that time, I met personally with Congressman Sutherland, and also had a joint meeting with him and Bob Jones, who's the Executive Director of the Southern Fisheries Association. Mr. Jones was adamantly opposed to this and has worked his entire life on behalf of commercial fishermen, so I managed to get the two of them together. And just wanted to let you know that the general consensus was this act moved forward, but there were some legitimate concerns that they both had, the way it impacted commercial fishermen, and so, you know, the congressman is not aggressively pushing this thing forward. So, want to let you know, I'm not either.
Let me ask you, Heather. Heather, can I redo that last deal I did on the TDC and the who pays what? Can I do a remake on that?
Well, it died, right?
Well, can I bring it up again? Is it possible to bring that sort of thing up again? Well, fine. We'll vote it one way or the other.
Well, what's, as a parliamentarian, what is the process on
We
that?
didn't have a vote. If we had a down vote, then somebody who voted against it would have had to change their vote to bring it back up, but we didn't have a vote at all. We just went on to the next item, so
Then can I bring it back?
I think that would be...
Is it up to me?
I think I'd
Bring it
leave
back up.
Okay, my deal was, sometimes we get all discombobulated. The TDC is doing a tremendous amount of work for the county. They just got a $500,000 grant to promote the county, bringing people into the county to pay taxes, create jobs, and whatever, and whatever. I'm going to reverse myself and ask the county then to pay the fees for the sign.
Okay, is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second. Anything else, Ralph?
Yeah, a couple more.
Chairman, I'm not going to relinquish chair to make a second. Do I agree with you or not? Thank you, Doug.
I just wanted to say, is Cherie still here? No, she's gone.
she's out,
Well,
yeah.
I want to say publicly, I had the opportunity to spend several days at the Capitol with her, and just wanted to sing her praises. We're very fortunate to have her. She knows her way around up there. We, you know, shook hands and met a whole lot of people, and I think we definitely benefit from having Cherie on our staff. So just wanted to sing her praises. I'm sorry she's not here. Also, if I can take a personal point, as of tomorrow, my beautiful wife and I have been married 25 years. I just want to say that she's my best friend.
You're a good woman.
We do everything together, and I couldn't be more blessed, so I love her.
Bless her soul.
Y'all want a photo op here?
She'll have to fill out a speaker card.
Congratulations.
All right, go ahead, Jerry.
Randy gave me the opportunity to start discussion items, so I'll be brief. Over the last month, we've had a tremendous number of people come to the county. The Blue Crab Festival brought a lot of people to the county. Rock the Dock had, I believe they had 450 votes, participants in Rock the Dock. The Big Bend Kayak Classic, sponsored by the Senior Center, in their first event had 100 anglers with their kayaks in heavy weather come. Had a great time over at the Skip Young's farm. And I would like to say something about Skip Young. Here's a person who never shows up, never complains, never criticizes, always have a smile. He donates his arena all the time to the county to have events, and I think we need to just almost make a proclamation to him, because he doesn't ask for anything. It's total donation, And if you have an event, he's always happy to oblige, and he does so much, and he asks for so little. So, Skip, I'd like to say thank you. Beavis Funeral Home is going to have a fish fry on behalf of the Senior Center this Saturday, and the proceeds will go to the Senior Center. It'll be between 11 and 2, and it's a mullet dinner, and it's only for $5. So it'll be at the funeral home. You don't have to be a patient to partake. You don't have to be a client to partake. Everybody's welcome.
If you weren't eating many fish anyway. Anything else? All right, my item, Howard, you got it on yours. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. I'm sure you'll talk about some more. This, the Highway 61 speed limit. I listened to the minutes, and I understand how certainly understand there could be some confusion about. The intent is that the board, by motion, was to restore the speed limits to the 2000 study levels. We had a lot of arguing back and forth, and finally I said, fine, don't change any speed limits until the CTST's approved it. What I should have said was don't implement any changes until the CTST approves it. So the last one we did was Highway 61. CTST met, said we don't want to. The board said we don't want to change speed limits till we do a speed study on it by the sheriff's department to show what's really going on out there. This is the results of the speed study. With the posted speed limit of 35, the 85th percentile, which means 85% of the people were driving that fast or slower, was 49 miles an hour. And as a general rule, you do not set the speed limit below the 85th percentile, because that's what everybody calls a speed trap. So they got raised. But what I am going to do is I'll bring back an agenda item at either the next meeting or the one after to clarify that and say we're going to restore the speed limits to the 2000 level, but we won't physically change the signs until the CTST has reviewed it and made any comments and agree with changing it. And then not have to come back before the board all over again. I don't know if that's what you were talking about, but I do agree to clarify it because it could be construed differently. Anyway, but so this scientifically proves it was a speed trap.
Okay, well, I take issue with that also.
All right, good.
Okay, so let's go back in history. In 2000, whatever the population was here, whatever the number of vehicles were here, was much less than what it is now. Speed studies based on this really have one thing in mind, and that is to move cars, to move traffic. They don't take mitigating circumstances into the picture. In the stretch of Shadeville that I'm most concerned with is the area that has Trice-Lane intersecting, a community center, which is hopefully going to be up and running soon, and a daycare and a large apartment complex and a little subdivision.
Here's why.
Wait. This is my turn.
Well, actually, it's my discussion item.
Well,
go ahead.
But now I have the floor, so let's proceed that way. Originally, when that as I understand it, when that speed limit was reduced to 35, basically.
How long ago?
When was it? When we had the daycare center go in there.
So it's been that way for at least 3 years. Been posted at 35, 3 years.
Correct.
That's a key point. Go ahead.
Yeah, a key point if you want to say that this kind of study is what you want to base your
I mean, do you see the date on it? 2/25.
I understand. Cars are speeding on this road. They're speeding around children. They're speeding around intersections.
Good information to provide you.
Okay, well, I'm ready for it. When that was being discussed as lowering that speed limit, it actually wasn't being discussed lowering the speed limit. It was being discussed as putting in another lane there. And to get around having to do that other lane, the speed limit was reduced to 35. Now, from 2000, bringing up to here, we've increased our population significantly, we've increased the number of cars significantly, and we've made for Wakulla County, a fairly congested area of Shadeville. I am very concerned about, and I think all of us on this board are very concerned about the liability of taking a 35 up to a 45 or whatever, and if people travel at a 45 speed, now travel 55 or
That's the flawed
65.
logic. That is the flawed logic.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. They're traveling above the speed when it was 35. Okay? Now, they may not increase it that much, or they may. I don't know the answer to
Here's
that.
that question was asked at CTSD. And
Okay.
The guy from DOT, that is their engineer expert in setting speed limits, says, you can go back and change it. He said, every time you change it, you go back and redo the study.
Well, it'll look the same.
Fifth percentile doesn't really change.
Okay.
People drive what they perceive as a comfortable or normal, safe speed on the road, okay?
Okay, so let me continue.
Obviously, that's a speed trap. Would you disagree with that?
No, I wouldn't. I think if you put up appropriate signage and you space it out, saying, just like we have in Panacea, reduce speed ahead.
Totally different.
Take your foot off the gas. Does your car reduce to that next speed when you get to the sign? Yes. Not a speed trap. They warned you. Reduce speed up ahead. Is it a speed trap like what probably exists in Newport where you blink and you're already over the speed limit? Yeah, that's a speed trap. But when you do proper signage, it's not a speed trap. It's people speeding around children. That's what this is. And I'm really, really, really concerned that we're placing more of an emphasis on flow of traffic rather than safety.
Well, I'll take a little issue with the people speeding around children. I assume you're referring to the daycare, which there's one on Happy Times and it's 55. There's a Busy Bee across the road from it called Crawfordville, it's 55. There's one over on by the River Springs School that's 45. And that just carries this is cut and dry scientific. Here's how you set speed limits. I'll be happy to provide you all the data. Do not set them below the 85th percentile.
If you want reduced speed around busy intersections, you reduce your speed limit, and then you do enforcement. And people will learn they don't speed in those areas.
Enforcement out there, right, Jessica? Out on the speed limit by the state troopers, and the logic I've heard.
I heard they're not there anymore.
Well, the logic I've heard, and I don't know how many times I heard this, and I ran the road park. Well, people are going to drive 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, so therefore we need to set the speed limit at 15 miles an hour, so people will actually drive 30. That is so ludicrous to me, it's not even funny. Set the speed limit at what it needs to be and enforce it.
Does this board, 5 of us up here, do we want to go back to the 2000 speed limits? Just carte blanche, and especially this one at Shadeville.
Not without review of the community traffic safety team.
Well, they're going to do a study that shows people are speeding.
No. We also did it on Martin Luther King, and it showed people were not speeding. So if there's no problem, there's nothing to fix.
What's the speed limit on Martin Luther King?
He did it in 3 different areas, 35, 45, and 55.
Yeah, most of it is moving along. Yeah. I just think this is
the
a...
review also, Howard, is if something has changed drastically since 2000, this isn't the only thing, it's the speed, but if something has drastically changed, then the CTSD would recommend don't change it back to the 2000 levels. But what I don't like is politicians like us arbitrarily deciding, I think it should be 35 because there's a daycare there. There's no rhyme or reason to that. None.
Well, I would prefer a reduced speed around children and busy and congested
Okay,
intersections.
well, let's reduce the speed on 319, even though we can, we do.
Or
Let's make it 35 in front of Happy Times.
There's 35 in front of, through our town.
No, in front of Happy Times. There's a daycare. It's 55 right now. Let's drop it to 35. Would that make sense?
They have a extra lane there.
Okay. So let's drop it to 45. Let's just pull a number out of the air. See what I'm saying?
I think they're totally different. I think they're totally different situations. You have, you're starting to compare apples and oranges, but that's okay. If this board thinks it's okay to go back to 2000 speed limits, if this board thinks that it's okay to our speed limit on Shadeville in that section from 35 to 45 or whatever, and that's the will of this board, they want to continue what the other board did as far as direction here, that's fine. I just want to be clear, I am not on board with that.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the agenda. Richard?
All right, I had put it on there about, discussing regarding code enforcement liens, fines, and assessments. You know, as y'all know, and it's been mentioned tonight about the vote that we had at the last meeting, and I still, to begin with, I just want to say I still stand by the vote that I did. I believe we did the right thing, even though it showed that the money was owed, that we recognize that the family themselves were the ones that cleaned up the property. Out of the 5 of us, I'm the one that passes by this property every day. I've lived and seen how it looked. I see how clean it is now, and the family did it on their own without us. They cleaned it up, and it wasn't their thing. So, but anyway, moving beyond that, one of the reasons that I have a big concern is I have a big concern with, you know, it was mentioned earlier about how much more is still out there. You got 564,000, 163,000 added together, and then says that we've only received 52,000, and also was wanting to come ahead pretty soon about wanting to foreclose on 10 parcels of property. Well, the concern I have is people's ability to pay it, and these fines are getting up there. I mean, they're rocking on 3 and 4 and 5 years, and they're getting up there to the point to where they're not able to pay it. Even after someone cleans up their yard, they're still looking at a 20 to 30.
They cannot foreclose on a homestead property.
Okay.
We understand that. You
Right.
cannot take somebody's home, their homestead home by foreclosure.
Right, and I'm not wanting to. I'm not wanting to.
You can't legally do that.
I talked to Jamie Bays today, code enforcement officer, and she answered a lot of my questions, but she also provided a lot of information that I think would also be helpful to the 5 of us as a whole, which is what I'm leading to. I would like to ask if the board would be willing to hold a future workshop about this in order for us to, I think there's a lot of information out there that she can relay to us. I think it will give us an opportunity to look at this further and discuss it further, because there's a lot to be discussed in the code, and I would just like to know if the board would be willing to hold a future workshop.
Okay. We got a lot of things to talk about it too, and I'll just, yes, I would agree to go along with that. My position on it would be, is if you're not the original offender, I know the lien goes with the property, but the person that caused it really should be the person that gets punished. That's right. So, if you're not the original owner, either by foreclosure or death or whatever, and you go in and clean up somebody else's mess, I think they should be eligible to get a lien release. But I do think we need to up our administrative costs to more realistic cover staff costs and time that cannot be waived. So there'd be a portion of the fine that could be waived and a portion that couldn't. And the reason why is if you have a piece of property that's a junk, just ruins the neighborhood, and you got $30,000 worth of foreclosure liens on a $20,000 piece of property, who in the right mind is going to buy that and clean it up? Nobody's ever going to buy it. The county is going to foreclose on it. The county's going to be out of pocket to clean it up. The county's going to lose all those foreclosure liens, and the county's going to end up losing money instead of waiving the fees and getting the thing cleaned up. I understand it goes with the property, but in the case of the one at South Choppy, the man
passed away.
The man's dead.
Yeah.
Who caused the problem died.
That's right.
And his daughter got stuck with it and cleaned it up.
And there's a lot of variables we look at, and each one of these would literally have to be looked at individually, which we have the code enforcement board to look at them individually. But in order for Jamie to share with the board everything that her and I talked about today, you know, I would just like to make the motion that we did have a workshop.
I can go around with the workshop, but I'd like to comment on some of these things that are said here.
Can we go ahead and figure out a date for our workshop? I mean, Ron wanted to have one anyway with the code enforcement board. Do we need to do that now?
It needs to be sooner than later.
Soon as you can. You need 2 hours, probably.
Can we do it June 6th, which is already, we have one scheduled?
I mean, when our administrator says the sooner the better, what are we talking about?
We have a full-time officer coming on board first, so that'll...
We have a meeting on June 3rd, and we have a workshop scheduled. That's a budget workshop for June 6th. So I would suggest the meeting on the 3rd, before the meeting of the 3rd.
What time's the meeting on the 3rd start?
That would be a
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock meeting.
You don't want to meet at 3 o'clock?
Fine.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I would say, yeah, probably,
2:30.
yeah, yeah, 2:30.
Is that all right with everybody?
Third,
You know, we
third.
can't make any decisions, but at least we can try to hash out some sort of consensus on general guidelines, or at least bring back like.
That's 2:30 on June the 3rd.
All right, Richard, anything else?
Well, I want to discuss this. Richard had brought up the code enforcement and liens, and you had commented on it. And how much did it cost the county over the years that it spent trying to get someone to clean up a property that the person refused to clean up? How much did it cost the county?
That goes back to my administrative fees. Not punitive fees, but administrative fees that cannot be waived. I agree with that.
How much time before it even went to code enforcement was the county involved with it, trying to be nice, trying to facilitate a non-confrontational way of resolving the issue? How many man-hours? All of that. How do you calculate all of that? And then to say that it's a new person and they cleaned up the property, and yeah, that's fine, but the county is out all of that, and the county then has $22,000 that they maybe could have collected, doubtfully, but let's say they collected a fourth of that, and they collected $5,000 on that piece of property. That's $5,000 that our taxpayers are being able to use to help code enforcement on their next
Sounds like
issue.
we're on the same page then, excellent.
And, okay, and the other message it gives is that, let me finish that thought. We took taxpayers' dollars, what do you want to call it, $5,000 or $22,000, and we gave it to some children who were the heirs to that person who passed away. Those children didn't put a dime out of their pocket. Those children, if that fine was collected, would not have gotten anything. If the person had cleaned up their property and saved that property and then passed it on to them, they would have legitimately got their inheritance. What we did as a county is we gave them an inheritance, and we didn't have to.
They didn't incur any expenses cleaning the place up after the man died?
Not the sons.
Huh?
Not the sons. The executor of the executor of the estate did. That's a totally different picture.
It is, it's not real cut and dry.
And the other issue is, when we forgive these fines, even after they've been reduced, we're sending a message to the rest of the community that, you know, don't take us seriously. Don't take code enforcement seriously, because no matter what code enforcement says, you can come to the board and say, whatever hardship, we can't pay this, and the board will turn around.
Nobody
said that.
Rental, and they didn't want to clean it up, and they wanted I would support waiving it.
Okay, I'm finished with the discussion on that.
Just had a very good time.
Anyway, I think these are some good things that we can put in, that we can hash out in the workshop. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, I've had a couple, this one is, do what?
Are y'all voting on that?
On the workshop?
All right, we got a motion.
I made the motion.
Second. All for it?
Aye.
Thank you, Jess.
There you go.
The next thing that I wanted to bring up was, I've had one citizen after another, it's growing more and more, the same issue at the rec park, they keep bringing it up, and I told them I would relay it to the board, but it's the issue of asking for more netting. And what I was wanting to ask the board, I stood behind a lady in the grocery store, her eye was just about swelled shut where she had been hit with a ball, and since that one, I've been able to meet two other ones, and there is a recurring thing of spectators being hit with the ball. Well, as there's a lot of them, as they're traveling around playing travel ball, they're seeing other fields that have more netting than we have. And I had one person ask me about, the amount of money that we're going to be spending on Hudson Park and Azalea Park. is there anything that we could maybe do as a board for safety reasons to add additional netting at the park? This is I don't know if any of you have had any of them come to you about it, but I've had several citizens come to me about this one issue.
One of the things, one of the things that I want to do is I want to increase the amount of money that goes into the rec department. They're operating on a skeletal budget, and when you don't have any money, you can't put up nets, and you can't clean bathrooms or anything. And the most important part of our county, bar none, is our children.
Yes, I agree with you.
And so when we come to budget, I want to make sure if I can take $500,000 away from roads, I want to put it into rec. But I want to get money from somewhere to go into the rec to take care of the kids.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring on here, to see if there's something we could do, and it's not got to be done right away, but something we can plan in the future to.
You can do it in the budget. We can, when the budget comes up, we can ask for more money for recreation department.
Okay.
I thought of my point real quick, Howard, but back to code enforcement with the liens. A citizen said earlier that, hey, with the message we're sending is, hey, don't worry, citizen, if you don't pay your fines, all you got to do is die and not worry about it. Well, who got the short end of the stick on that one, the county or the guy that died? I say the guy that died did, so that's not a real motivation to die, not have to pay your code enforcement liens. Anyway.
Depends on where you're going.
Well, you need to go there when it's short time, not before, then just not have to pay a code enforcement.
to go early.
Just wanted to make a comment on, since the netting at the rec part was brought up, I had issues with netting brought up to me, but in a different context, not for protection, but apparently at least one of our fields, when the sun is setting, it becomes very difficult for the players to be able to visualize the ball. And netting would improve that aspect as well. So if maybe we can direct our rec person to do an evaluation of where the
Sitting right there.
where the best areas for netting could be, and what is the potential cost of that.
That all comes in budget. They can't operate without money. I think the rec guy knows that.
Well, on a larger note, we talked at one time about looking at the allocation to once it's sales tax. I think is kind of what it's falling back to. We have a certain allocation for Parks and Rec. Now, I don't know if you could use that once it's sales tax to...
For nets, not sure. That's, huh? It's to capital.
It's capital. Sure, it's capital.
The problem is with netting is where do you stop? Really? That's your, with netting, you can go to ball fields right now in Panama City Beach, there's no netting.
I think it's a question for Mr. Ronberry and for our recreational advisory committee.
But it's where do you stop? I mean,
you put it on some, you don't on others, then you're liable for those you didn't put it on.
You don't put it on any of them.
Yeah, I understand that.
I've received the same phone calls as Howard regarding the sun, and so, definitely, I think it's something maybe we could look at.
We just gotta increase our rec budget. We gotta give them money to operate with.
I don't know anything about netting, but it looks like around a golf course would be useful area too, but you don't see them around there.
I played years and years and years on baseball. Major League Baseball fields don't have nettings, other just in the back.
We all love recreation though, Brian.
Well, I think it depends to a certain extent of how your field is oriented and how that sun is setting, and,
Oh, yeah, and what you're talking about is different than ball protection.
Right. I'm not talking about the
Can we get enough net to keep the sand gnats out?
Now that is worth doing.
Okay. So on to me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, the first item I have, and I have a couple of others that I want to speak to, but I had brought up before in the discussion regarding strategic lawsuits, possibly the board getting behind a resolution, taking a position to be against those SLAPP suits, and provided you all some information. Do you have any comments on that?
I read it.
I don't want any part of it.
I read it, and I don't necessarily have a problem supporting that. I would, however, definitely not say it's a board priority. So, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't see how it would hurt anything.
Okay, I'll work on a resolution and I'll bring it back.
I read the existing state law, basically, you want to change it from only a homeowner association, to any citizen could file for protection under the SLAP statute, I guess.
But I think I would be coming, not to interrupt, I'm sorry, I would be coming from a position of just a general policy thing, not even to try to...
It's not a policy we can do, it's kind of like...
Understand.
We're recommending such and such for Florida Marine Commissioners. Does it mean anything? No. But I mean, if we do pass a resolution, if you want to pick it up and run it to Tallahassee and run with it, that's your business.
Yeah, if it passes, that's what it'll do. The thing, I think it'll show the citizens that the board is at least...
I don't see any really negative drawbacks
Okay.
after research.
I just had just maybe a clarification question. I assume we'd all be against SLAP lawsuits, but how do we...
We've had commissioners before, to interrupt, we've had commissioners before on this board saying, no, they think they're good.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the challenging part is, how would we define one? We almost would have to be a judge and make a determination that this is not a legitimate suit.
State law has kind of defined it. What they do, if Howard gets sued by Nestle, then Howard gets recourse to go to the judge and say, Judge, this is a frivolous lawsuit. They'll look at it immediately, right, and determine whether it is or not, and say, all right, dismissed, or no, you can go ahead. And he doesn't have to spend money out of his pocket to defend himself all the way to the end, only to be found not guilty, even after he's spent $20,000, $30,000. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, it wouldn't cover me right now, because the Florida statutes are so narrow. Other states do have broader.
We can't. All these want to do is say, we don't like SLAP.
We're against it.
Right, that's all.
But it wouldn't change the procedural process. The person would still go before the judge would make a
We
determination.
can't change anything in state statutes.
Okay.
All we can do is say, we think this is a good idea, but we're not going to, as a board, spend money on it or make it a priority.
I guess I just need to understand it better.
It just so that if the board chooses to back a resolution saying this board is not in favor of SLAP suits.
Symbolic. It'd be like saying this board is not in favor of sticking chewing gum in there.
Yeah, but at times, we've actually had statements from former commissioners saying that they were in favor of that. Okay, not to do anything to diminish that. But I'll bring it forward as a resolution. Not right away, but I'll work on it. So that's one thing. The other thing I had there is a discussion regarding limitation of truck size on our roads. At the next meeting and the presentations, there'll be someone who will give a short PowerPoint on that.
Is this that group that sent an email out to everybody wanting to make a presentation about larger truck sizes on roads?
I don't know if it's the same group. I met with somebody.
Yes, I think it's them. And they're opposing some change in the law allowing larger than 80,000 pound vehicles on roads.
And longer. Yeah, and longer tandems as well.
I had someone similar contact me about the same thing. It's more or less about, had to do with tandems. The way that I looked into it, it was basically kind of an infighting going on between the railroad and the long road trucker. That was kind of the way I looked at it.
It has to do with they just passed a law increasing the weight limits for forestry products, your timber that goes to mill, the hauling of that. So it was important to those people because of the cost of gas and so forth.
So you say somebody's going to be making a presentation?
You're making a presentation.
Please ask them to be.
I have, yep. Shade Road Highway speed limit, we've already done. On May 16th, I will not be able to be there, but there's, you may have gotten emails on the BMAP. This process is going forward on how to protect Wakulla Springs. It's an amazing amount of people that show up to this, mostly government, probably between 40 and 60 people each time at the Woodville Community Center. I'm not going to be able to be there. If any of you might want to be there, maybe let Dave know, and I'll make sure you have all the details. I think it's at 9 or 9:30 in the morning on May 16th. 9:30. 9:30? There it is. So now you don't need any more details, and if anyone can make it, that'd be great.
Excellent.
Scheduling of Board of County Commission times. We have our next meeting, our second meeting, afternoon meeting coming up this month, our next meeting. I feel very strongly that this really penalizes the people that have jobs. And it's even tough for a lot of them to make a 5 o'clock meeting. And maybe, I don't know how the board feels right now, but maybe at that second meeting, we could entertain possibly going back to a later start of the meeting. So, that's good. You have any comments on that?
I'm still fine with the 2 o'clock. I know Kraut was really the swing man on it, so.
I've made a commitment to bring it back at the first meeting in June.
Okay.
You know, so I was gonna bring it back for discussion either way.
Super. No, maybe as an agenda item, so we possibly could vote on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Well, it only needs to be agenda item if you want to change it. I don't think we need to vote not to change it something. So if you want it, if you evaluated it and you've decided that you think it's better to do it the other way, you bring an agenda item back saying restore it to 5, it'll pass. Richard voted against it, Howard did too.
Well,
So
yeah, so,
it's really up to you.
well, it's up to you, and it's not up to you. Because if you're not going to bring it back, then I'd like to bring it back.
Yeah.
So somehow I
Definitely
think it
gonna
should
bring
come
it back
back.
because I made a commitment to do so.
Okay, great. So, you know, if it's on there, I think we all should have the opportunity to look at it again. I'm all for that, okay, and well, that's about it. No, the one thing I did have, and I think I'm going to pull it off, is I was going to have, well, 2 things. On the code enforcement, which we have a workshop set up for that.
Yes.
Right. I was going to bring forward just for the board to look at a mechanism of a procedure of how, if and when the board was going to waive code enforcement fines, that there'd be a procedure that would be used for everyone.
I agree.
Okay? But I want to hold that back, let the workshop take place, and see where we go with
I
that.
think we're more in agreement than disagreement on this, to be honest with you, when it all boils down to it. I'm going to be bringing an item back, by the way, about this 35-foot wetland buffer to allow at least a citizen to be able to appeal to the board to get inside that 35 feet. Right now, I've had a call from a couple of people. There's not even an appeals process. Your property is just useless. There's not even a method to appeal it. I think that the comp plan is pretty clear that it says the board shall allow a policy variances. I talked to Paul Johnson, who was on the wetland. That was the intention the whole time, but the wording doesn't allow that according to our county attorney. So I want to try to change that wording. I don't know if I'll bring it back next meeting or after, but.
Okay, that's it.
All right, we got a motion to adjourn?
So
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We're adjourned.
Good.